What's up, everyone? Hello, hello. Thank you for joining the live. What's up, Self-Love Energy? I like that name, Self-Love Energy. What's up, user 711? Let's get the chat going. We just started right now. Get everything all connected up. We've got 3 people in the live. We're warming up. Just connect up the chat so everyone can see and hear me. What's up? It's me, 77. How you doing? Nice to see you. Nice. Let's just. Oh dear. Found guilty by jury, so you know better. Yes, I do know better than the jury. I definitely know better than the jury. And that's not even a controversial thing to say. Do I have a job? No. Input microphone up. Denver, Colorado, USA. What's up? I just want to make sure that the YouTube stream is working for the people that prefer to watch on YouTube. Same thing happened in America. Oh, what happened? Was it a similar case to the Letby case? Colorado, USA. What's up? Okay. The sound is working on America. Who is the person in the United States who that happened with? That would be an interesting case to look into. Black female? I don't know what you mean by that. But she was found guilty. Yeah, it's called a miscarriage of justice. So when someone gets found guilty but they're not actually guilty, it's called a miscarriage of justice. And it's happening a lot nowadays because there's really uneducated juries. Oh, a someone versus a black male. Okay. Yeah, that does happen a lot in the USA. That happens a lot in the UK. In fact, I've been convicted of crimes that I haven't committed. She's definitely guilty. The NHS don't just frame people. Yes, they do. And she's definitely not guilty. Why would you say something with such confidence that you don't know anything about? That's weird. That's really weird. And this is the problem, because if it's somebody like that who doesn't know what they're talking about is on the jury, then of course you're going to end up with a conviction. We've got 23 people viewing live. So let's have a good discussion, guys. Tap the screen to like the live if you want someone to come on the debate. At 1,000 likes, we will get our first debater on. Request to join if you want to speak to me about this topic. I'm quite educated on it. And I'm connected to many people that are very educated on it. Do you have any proof she isn't guilty? That's not how the legal system works. What you have to do is prove that they are guilty beyond reasonable doubt, which was not done, which means that it's a wrongful conviction. And her case is going to be before the Criminal Cases Review Commission. And I anticipate that she will be freed. And when she is freed, I'd like all of you guys who doubt me to come back on this page and say, yeah, you were right about Letby, and then I'll just say, yeah. And then there's loads of other people that the NHS is framed. Should we try and expose those things as well? Because that would be great. Why do you think she's innocent? There's actually no evidence that suggests that she's done anything. So that's why. So if you get someone and they get found guilty based on dubious, fraudulent, or incorrect evidence, or claims that are unsubstantiated, that's not a very strong conviction. You think she's guilty. Why do you think she's guilty? We got 100 people viewing. Explain to the 100 viewers why you think she's guilty. There's no evidence. The standard of evidence required for the prosecution in the UK are huge. Exactly, which is why she's not guilty. That's exactly why she's not guilty, because there's no evidence that meets that standard. Mate, there's books of evidence. No, there's not. You can't name a single piece of evidence. And if you came and debated me, then it would become obvious to everyone watching that you don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, if you wanna debate, we can debate about it. And I'm now over. I'd say I'm now. I'm virtually certain that she's not guilty. So it's gone from 60% to 70% to 80%. I'm now basically certain that she's not guilty, based on people that I've spoken to. Copacabana, what's good, man? My problem with her case is the hospital failed and avoided investigating her. There was nothing to investigate her for because she didn't do anything. Snipes, you seem so confident in your opinion, but then you don't have that same confidence when you get invited to debate. Don't you think that's... Why should anybody respect what you have to say if you're confident in the comments, but when you're invited to debate your perspective, you're not as confident? Copacabana wants to debate. Okay. NHS frame Paul Lucy. Yep. 100%. Yeah, we can debate if you want, Copacabana. Did you request? I can invite you up if you want. Where are you in the chat? Yeah, you're gonna have to request. Oh, there's no request option. That's weird. We got 140 people viewing live. Can you guys not see a request button? How are you saying she ain't guilty? She's not guilty. It's obvious that she's not guilty to anyone who knows what they're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, then obviously you're going to think she's guilty. If you do know what you're talking about, then you're going to know that she's not guilty. It's pretty much as simple as that. Are you a father of one of the kids? If so, I'm sorry. No, I'm not a father of one of the kids, but I have been framed by the NHS. And they also took the life of my child and covered it up. So I know how they frame people because they did it to me. What were you framed for? They tried to have my children removed from me using social services because I was exposing the fact that they were harming children by using the machines wrong, and then they killed my daughter by using the machine wrong. And then I said, yeah, you've just done exactly what I said you were going to do because you weren't listening to me. And then they covered up my daughter's death and tried to say that I was a serious risk of harm to my kids. Yeah, they basically just framed me. They put fraudulent notes out to the coroner and prevented us from getting an inquest. Where's the source of this? The source of what? She didn't receive a fair trial regardless of if you think she's guilty or not. Yeah, so no fair trial and also no evidence, which is a crucial part. No evidence that any M was even committed. It's scary. Why do you think she's innocent? Honest question. Because she is not guilty. It's just, I mean, it's pretty obvious that she's not guilty. R. Kelly was framed. Yeah, R. Kelly was framed on his most recent conviction. Yeah, that's correct. But not on his previous things that he has done in the past, which are quite heinous and distasteful. But on his most recent conviction, yeah, he was framed. Do you think she could be guilty of another lesser crime such as medical negligence? Medical negligence is not a crime unless you mean criminal negligence. I don't think that she's guilty of criminal negligence. The threshold is too high. If they changed the threshold and said just because someone's present when someone passes away that's criminal negligence, I don't think that would be very conducive to proper medical practice. But irrespective of that, she's not guilty of any crime. It's quite obvious she's not guilty of any crime. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to frame her. and fabricate narratives that are ridiculous in order to get her convicted. And this just how people respond to this case. It just tells you where we're at in society, where we think we're really advanced, but we really have archaic, brains. Many of us are not very sharp. People don't understand logic. They don't understand statistics. It's like we are the same animal, the same creature from the Salem witch trials and all of this stuff. And people are so susceptible to groupthink that I have genuinely lost faith in humanity completely. When the realization of how much people are actually just influenced by herd mentality. I mean, I knew that most people were, but I didn't think it was 99% of people, but it really is. The NHS didn't investigate and prosecute. That was the police and CPS. Yeah, but if you actually knew how the case was prosecuted, you would understand that the prosecution was actually led by the consultants that made the allegations against her. So it was essentially a prosecution by the NHS, because police will always side with the NHS because they're criminals. They're a criminal organisation who collude with police and local authorities to pursue their agendas. And anyone who's really gone up against them knows that this is what they're like. But if you've never gone against them, you won't know that that's how they operate. They're like a mafia. She's 100% guilty from what I've heard working in the NHS. When someone tells me that they work in the NHS, that's never a sign to me that they know what they're talking about, unfortunately. What do I think about her diary? So her diary entries are interesting because she's put that she's not guilty on the same page that she said, I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. So is she saying that that's what someone's saying about her? And how can you have a diary confession to something that didn't happen? She never admitted to an M. If she did those crimes to your child, was she still not guilty? So this is what I mean when I say people don't understand logic. So this person, girl mum, think about the logic of this question. I'm saying she didn't do it, right? Her response is, but if she did it to your child, would she still be not guilty? So this shows that she doesn't even understand what we're talking about. Because I'm saying she didn't do it. So why would your response be, but if she did it to your child, would you say she's not guilty? That question implies that she did it. I'm saying she didn't do it. So your question is completely irrelevant. Where is your great logic and discernment? You don't understand her very, very straightforward diary. No, I do understand it. That's why I'm telling you it's not a confession. And you can't be guilty of a crime that didn't happen. I'm thinking of the logic there is still guilty, so don't try and call me dumb. There isn't CCTV, so again, you don't know what you're talking about. It's a bit suspicious that the same woman was involved in multiple babies dying, don't you think? No, I don't think that's suspicious at all, because if you work on a neonatal ward, then you're going to be and you're assigned to sick babies, then you're going to be present when those babies die, especially if the babies are dying due to a systemic issue. So that is not evidence that you've committed an M, the fact that you were present, because you work in the place where the babies die. So of course nobody understands anything. All authorities are wrong. Thank God you've right. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the authorities are wrong about almost everything. Yeah, because their job is to control the way that people think about things. So of course they're just going to lie to you, and if you're not very intelligent like you, then you're gonna struggle. It just wasn't in our nature to do any psychologist. It's to cover up. Yeah. It's crazy to me that after all of the new information that has come out, people still can't see that she's innocent. So, I thought that when the media started pushing the other narrative, showing all of the evidence that she's not guilty, that people would suddenly start saying, "Oh, she's not guilty." But it just shows the level of cognitive dissonance and ignorance. It makes me worry about my case, because I'm like, my case is even harder to believe than Lucy's. even though we've got evidence and recordings. So I guess that's how these criminals get away with framing people, because the public just would never believe what the things that they do. Good news don't stick. I think it's more than that, Katie. I think it's more than just good news not sticking. I think there is something wrong with the public. There's something wrong with the way people think. It's decades of demoralization and brainwashing, and people just can't think critically. Kobe Kawan says, I have no opinion on her guilt or innocence, but knowing what I know, balance of probability leans towards guilty. That's fine. If you believe on the balance of probabilities, it leans towards guilty. You know, that's, I don't know what, you know, what is making you think that. But that doesn't even matter, because the threshold is not balance of probability, it's beyond reasonable doubt. So if on the balance of probabilities you think someone's guilty, but you have reasonable doubt as to if they might not be guilty, then you should be acquitting them. And obviously there's reasonable doubt in the Letby case. What's your views on ICE? What's ICE? There is CCTV. Google's a thing. Do the research. No, there isn't. Immigration, customs enforcement. I mean, that's not really relevant to the discussion. Can I ask who she is and what she did? She's a neonatal nurse that's being framed by the NHS because when they have systemic issues that cause the deaths of children, they don't want to take accountability, and so they frame people and cover it up. And that's what's happened to Lucy, and it's happened to many people. It's just that most people don't hear about it. I know many people that it's happened to personally, and it's happened to me as well. So I have no doubt about what's happened because I've already experienced it myself. I'm not taking it emotionally at all. I'm obviously being logical. Like you said with the diary thing, she may have written she did do it and then make her believe. What happened to you? I was framed by the NHS and then they killed my child. Do you have any thoughts on her being neurodivergent? I'm autistic and I'm convinced she is. I know, so I actually have spoken to the person who helped to free Lucia de Burgh. He's actually quite prominent in the press. I've spoken to him regarding this case. He is a mathematics professor, and he's been involved in numerous cases like this. And again, he told me he's freed 2 other nurses that had been convicted just how Lucy had been convicted. And he was autistic. And he said that he believes that Letby was autistic as well. And what you find is that people that do things by the book, or that are highly logical and take things, say things as they are, they will struggle in the NHS, because in the NHS there's a lot of bullying and hysteria, and so people that are highly logical, they're very easy to frame, because when they say things, they're very matter of fact and they say what they mean and mean what they say. But people who are subversive and coercive and gossip and cover up, they are very difficult to frame, because they always cover their backs and they do things in a way that gives them plausible deniability. But people that are honest, they won't seek plausible deniability. For example, when my daughter was on the ward, they make a mistake with the machine, and I'll say to them, excuse me, I've just told the management that you guys have made a mistake and it's harmed my baby. But some parents on the ward who might have better social skills than me, they will just be like, oh, everything okay? Yeah, okay. But then I'll go to the senior management and say, hi guys, there's been a mistake made with my baby. This nurse did it. Do you understand? So you make yourself a target because you're being honest and open and logical. But people who are covert in their actions, they're more difficult to frame. People that are more, that socialize in a different way to how many neurodivergent people socialize, they're harder to frame. And this has been happening to me for my whole life. I always get framed with things because of how I reason. I'm logical, so I always say what I mean and mean what I say. You're obviously very biased. That's not to say child protection is... No, you're just ignorant. It's not that I'm biased. You're just ignorant and you don't want to open your mind to the fact that you're wrong. So don't call me biased because you don't know what you're talking about and I do. For one reason, why are they reading her diary in the first place? She's writing her thoughts from her. She was told to write those thoughts by a psychiatrist. Jenny said, I'm the same, multiple false allegations, working in care because I stand up for what's right. Yeah. The problem with the NHS is it's unaccountable. There's always someone at the lower end to blame. Yeah. Your experiences don't apply to Lucy's case. Yes, they do. I've been through what Lucy's been through, and I've been through what the parents on the Lucy Letby case have been through. And I've got a direct connection to the Letby case because the same expert whose narrative was used to convict her is the same expert that's narrative was used to deem my daughter's death a natural causes death. It's the same guy. And I also have spoken to the guy who is the #1 campaigner in freeing Lucy Letby, and he's freed 2 other neonatal nurses who were falsely convicted. So I think I'm probably one of the best people on the planet to speak about this matter. Not only that, I've researched this case intently. I have a very analytical mind, and I can clearly see that there's been statistical errors in her case, heuristic errors. Beans, I know you're jealous of me because I'm more intelligent than you, but you don't have to derail the live. Who do you think injected the babies with insulin air? Nobody injected anybody with insulin or air. That didn't happen. Right, let's block the derailers because I'm just tired of this kind of thing going on. Oh yeah, Beans, you can jog on too. Let's get you off here. Blocking people who don't have the same narrative as you. No, they're trying to attack my experience when the live is not about my experience. The live is about the veracity of the allegations against Lucy Letby, and so it's just a complete red herring that derails the live when people try to make false claims about me and who I am and what my experience is and whether I'm qualified. I mean, it doesn't add anything to the discussion. What do you think really happened? I think that the consultants that she had an issue with on the ward decided to frame her, and because they're very powerful, they got away with framing her. And I think now that the S has hit the fan, they are doing everything that they can to prevent themselves from going to prison, which is what happens when you frame people and then things spiral out of control. Consultants have God complexes. Yeah, they're some of the worst, most unaccountable people in our society are NHS consultants, and they're actually probably one of the main reasons why the NHS is failing, because there's no accountability. People defer to them. People treat them like gods. They don't really add as much value to the NHS as people think. They don't, the NHS is in a crisis, but then when people try and blame the people who are responsible for the crisis, they want to deflect onto people that are like in the public or people that criticize them. And it's like, who is to blame? Because surely if I'm running a business and the business sucks, people are going to be like, you suck. You need to, you know what I'm saying? You need to go. But in the NHS, the consultants and the senior management, they are the ones ruining the NHS. And then they're somehow blaming the fact that they don't get enough money. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, they suck. That's why the NHS sucks. Do you believe that the babies were deliberately mic'd? I don't believe anybody deliberately did anything. I think that they are just negligent because they're not as intelligent as people think. These people don't get the job because they're intelligent. They get the job because they go to medical school and they follow steps and they learn how to keep their mouth shut and they learn how to rub the right shoulders. That's how they get positions. They learn how to look the other way when negligence happens, and that's how they rise up the ranks. Like, it's funny when people talk about like billionaires and stuff, they're like, oh, there are no good billionaires because billionaires have to what's it called? Billionaires have to mess people over in order to get where they are. And then it's like, nobody ever wants to apply that same logic to the people that are really powerful in the NHS. It's like, they get where they are because they don't raise concerns. They don't expose corruption. That's how they rise up the ranks. Cillian said, who should do the jobs if not the people that spend years going to medical school? I think the whole system needs reform. I think medical technology is more important than the institution of medical, of the what shall I call it? The creed of medicine and how it's been practiced for decades, in fact centuries, I think it's based on an archaic system that needs to be totally reformed, because it's based on a system created by the Jesuit priests of Rome, and it's modeled on the hierarchy that you see in the church, where you have initiates who are better than everyone and have this internal information that nobody else can access, and then the profane who are just, you know, the everyday patients who are just not the experts. And that system is no longer congruent with our reality, because in our reality everyone can access abundant information. So we need to rely more on technology than on doctors, because the technology gives us direct access to the information that we need. But what we have instead is we have these people, they're in these high power positions, and they are able to pretend that they're providing more value than they actually are, and nobody is able to hold them accountable. So in reality, their power needs to be decreased, and we need to give more power to the technological side of things. All the medical notes should be digitized. Like, they should be wearing body cameras. They shouldn't even have to write medical notes down, because an AI can do that. So I feel like we're entering an era where this system is from a bygone era. Why do they not think about it? Police have body-worn cameras. Why do medical staff not have body-worn cameras? Does anybody ever think about that? It's because they don't want you to see what actually happens on the neonatal wards and on the hospital wards. Because if you saw what actually happens, you would realize that 90% of their job is just covering stuff up and fabricating diagnoses against people. Like, that's literally what they do. Like, it's just their bread and butter. Do you think all medical staff should be replaced by AI? No, I don't. I just think that a lot of the medical documentation should be digitized and should be done through camera audio recordings. There's a way to make that system more efficient. We can't keep pretending that there's no way to make it more efficient. Due to patient confidentiality, yeah, but they still have cameras, so they still are able to see. The thing is, we can reform the system. I get that right now, like the way it is and the legal precedent makes it harder. But if we actually campaign and put effort in and think around the problems, we can reform the system. So you say, okay, well, what about the personal data issues and stuff like that? Well, they still have cameras on wards. Now, if you did a referendum of the public and said, what matters more to you, your personal privacy or having everything that happens on a ward documented? I would argue that most people would say that they would rather have it documented. So we should implement that. We should implement cameras, and some wards do have cameras, so it's not impossible. There should be cameras, and that's how things should get documented on the ward. Lucy would not be in prison right now if there were cameras on the ward. I wouldn't have got framed if there were cameras on the ward. So that's a big deal. And a lot of people who pass away on wards, they pass away because of medical negligence. And they don't want the public to know that. It's like the best kept secret. Celestial Cat says, I'm a support worker, you can put a camera on me any day. Exactly. And people that think like that, these are the good people in the system, the people that have nothing to hide. But the people that are against it, it's because they know what's going on. I know what's going on. Many of you guys don't know what's going on, unfortunately. But what is really going on is that people are being mass emmed, or let's just say mass killed, at an unprecedented rate, and it's being covered up. And it's one of the biggest crises in the history of the UK, what's happening in the NHS. Miss JW says, I prioritize my rights to privacy, but the NHS are criminals. Yes, they are basically an unaccountable communist mafia. And that's just me calling a spade a spade. And they adopt those kind of ideologies in order to inculcate the members of their little cult with this mindset that they can do no wrong and they must protect the system at all costs. How is it communist? Well, the rhetoric around it is based on communist ideology. There's a document called Towards a Million Change Agents, I think. You should look that document up. It's about how they wanted to change the NHS and use social movements. The social movement is communist rhetoric, communist ideology, to make people have a different perception of the NHS. You should look that up. Towards a Million Change Agents. And it is. and that they operate because they have 100% public funding. They're not accountable, and they unalive people, and they get away with it, and they function how a communist system functions. Mo says, my dad forgot his diabetic meds, had a hypo, gave him meds, next minute dead to random. NHS has always worked to make down minority population mainly, but then minorities still trust them. They do it to everybody. I blame the media. They played a huge role in propagating bias. Yeah, we now living in think about this, guys. We're now living in an era in the UK where you can blatantly see that the public was prejudiced in the Letby case, and nobody even cares about that. That's the most glaringly obvious part of it, is that the jury was prejudiced by the media because of how they covered the case. Number one. Number two, the way that the case was brought by the prosecution, the case should have got thrown out straight away because the evidence was cherry picked. The evidence was presented in a way that was deliberately misleading. And I don't believe that it wasn't deliberately misleading, because unless these doctors are not as clever as they seem, how can they not know what cherry picking is? Of course they should know what cherry picking is, unless doctors are not really as intelligent as people think, which they're not, unfortunately. But Chloe says, can she appeal? So her appeal was denied. That's another thing that's extremely suspicious. Why was her appeal denied? That's weird. She definitely had grounds to appeal. The case was so dubious and such a weak, the strength of the conviction is so weak that she definitely had grounds to appeal. Why was she not allowed to appeal? Well, the reason she wasn't allowed to appeal is because it's a cover-up. So that's why they didn't want her to appeal. And then it's now going to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. So if this case is reviewed and she is found to be still guilty, we have entered in the UK a post-truth era in the legal system. And the common law system is probably the best thing that the UK has left. The system that exists in the courts is the best thing left in the UK. And I predict, right now, I'm predicting, because this gets recorded as well, I predict that within 30 years in the UK, we will be living under full-blown communism. Because all of the principles and precepts that made the UK great and made the system, the common law government system, or the common law legal system work, have all been rescinded. Everything good about it is gone. So the health system doesn't work anymore. Politics, we all know politics is a scam. The police are clearly corrupt. They're leftist ideologues. NHS also leftist ideologues. So what's left in terms of systems and institutions that can be trusted in the UK if the legal system goes? Koba Gawana says 30 years is generous. UK will be communist before Stalin leaves. I'd say 30 years. We have another jealous person calling me an Oreo. We get it. You're not intelligent, you know. Nadia, we get it. You're not intelligent. You can't keep up with the conversation. It's okay. It's okay. Just, you can make it about race because you're not intelligent enough to keep up. It's okay. It's okay. We're not mad at it. We're not mad at it. We know that that's what you guys resort to because when you can't keep up with stuff. We know. It just shows how intelligent you are. Opinions on reform. I don't think reform is going to be able to solve the issues in the UK, unfortunately. I think they have some good ideas. I like the idea about the Bill of Rights, the new UK Bill of Rights. I don't like the fact that they want to bring back stop and search because I don't believe in infringement on civil liberties that are unwarranted, and I believe that people should have the right to bear arms, so I don't agree with stop and search being brought back by reform. What else is reform stipulating? The immigration issue, I think any party could realistically solve that. And I don't think any party will actually solve it. They will probably reduce net migration a bit more, but there will still be a lot of net migration, as you see now, where they're all trying to claim, oh yeah, look, see, we're responsible for the reduction in net migration, and they're like, it's still 500,000 people that came into the country. It's not exactly like the situation's still getting worse in terms of the strain on the services. I wouldn't even be surprised if the reduction in the NHS waiting list is just fabricated or they're just playing around with the data, because I don't see how they could have reduced the NHS waiting list with an extra 500k people in the country in 1 year. How? You're conflating legal and illegal migration. No, I'm not. You just clearly didn't understand what I said. Do you have evidence of this? I mean, for no hate, but she found guilty. Yeah, it's just a wrongful conviction. Whatever this government say, you can bet the opposite is true. Lucy's innocent. Funnily enough, I actually don't think Labour is doing as bad as people make out. Just being honest, I'm not a Labour supporter. I'm not left wing, but I just don't see what in particular Labour is doing that people think is the cause of the problems in the UK. Definitely the way that they covered the riots, I thought was appalling, and I thought Starmer should have actually resigned based on how he prejudiced the investigation into some of the people that were convicted and how the police called them criminals before they were convicted. I thought that was abhorrent. I didn't like how he characterized the people's concerns with respect to what happened in Southport and started calling them all far-right thugs and stuff like that. I thought he could have handled it better. But I think in terms of policy, there's nothing Labour has done really that the majority of the UK wouldn't want. What have they done? They're nationalising the rail. If you did a poll right now, should the rail be nationalised? Most people will say yes. What are they doing? They're cutting the two-child benefit cap. If you did a poll, should the two-child benefit cap be removed? Everyone will say yes. What is Labour doing that people don't agree with? If Labour are continuing the trend of allowing people to get arrested for speech offences, most people in the UK believe people should be arrested for speech offences. So Labour is doing what the people of the UK want. The problems in the UK are not because of Labour. These have been problems for decades. It's only now with TikTok and the internet that people starting to see, oh, people get arrested for speech offences. It's been happening. Oh, let's see if we can get a guest up, actually. We got... let's see what Copacabana wants to say, because he's been waiting a while. Thanks for the gifts, by the way, bro. What's up?
You all right?
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Good. I think you touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
The big one, and I'm not bearing on her actual guilt. I think what I present is something for consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're not. A lot of people are very stubborn when you debate with people a lot of the time. Even if you're right, you're never going to change their mind. So it's not even to change your mind, but just something to consider.
Sure.
So, working in a hospital environment and on the balance of probability.
Yeah.
So I'm a nurse. In the time that I've been a nurse, they tried to frame me for a bunch of different things. One thing I can definitively say is the NHS is terrible at putting across accusations against somebody. They're terrible at constructing when they're accusing somebody. They're terrible at doing it. From what I've seen, I've been accused of a bunch of things, but to this day my record is clean.
Yeah.
Now you could say that I'm guilty of one, whatever, but. For them to accuse her, first of all, the consultant that accused her was shunned and they tried to push him out. And her management, her nursing management, actually protected her for years. And for me, that's a massive red flag. I'm not saying it's uncommon. Yeah. It's incredibly common. It happens all the time. But the fact that they tried to protect her makes me think that they were trying to protect their reputation.
I take your point. I get what you're trying to say, but so the difference is that the people that were trying to protect her were not the trust that she worked at. Does that make sense? So the people that were trying to protect her are a separate organization of people that protect nurses. It's not her trust. So I'm saying she was framed by her trust, not by everybody involved. Of course, there are people that have been supporting her all along. And what I get another thing about what you're saying about they're not very good at making allegations. The thing is, I've spoke to you a couple of times, bro. Like you're a smart guy. I would say that I'm a pretty smart guy. Lucy might not be as smart enough to, because remember, if you're somebody like Lucy, let's be honest, you probably go through life in this society. People are not really going to make false allegations against you like that. you know, if you cry, people are going to probably support you. She's not used to being falsely accused. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Someone like me, I'm 10 steps ahead. I'm waiting for you to falsely accuse me. The only reason why I was able to, and probably same for you, get around the false allegations, because you're sharp. He's 10 steps ahead. Someone like Lucy, she's not going to be able to keep up with what they're doing, because that's not something that's usually going to happen to her, where she's going to get falsely accused and stuff like that. So I think she probably underestimated the cynicism of the people who were accusing her.
Okay, I totally get that one. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, like I say, I'm not bearing on her actual guilt. Is I wanted to talk about the actus reus part of it. So, babies died in that department.
Yeah.
Okay, and if we look at her as the main suspect, being guilty in a court of law doesn't mean you didn't do it. You could have done it, but you're not guilty, etc., etc.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, do you think she did the act? Is my question. In your opinion?
No, there's no act to convict her of. In a sense, let's just remove any personal feeling from it, because Lucy could be a horrible person. I don't know her. I don't really care about her. The reason why I actually talk about this case is because what it actually means for people like us, people that work in the system, and for the UK. The significance of the case is not actually whether she did it or not. It's the fact that she was convicted when there's not enough evidence for her to be guilty. Does that make sense? So it's about the strength of the conviction. I'm the kind of person where if somebody did a crime, but there's not enough evidence to convict them, I don't think they should be convicted. Even if I know they did the crime, because the person should be convicted based on whether or not there's a case that can be proven beyond reasonable doubt. That's the basis of the legal system, right? Of the criminal justice system. If we start convicting people when there's not enough evidence to convict them just because of a media witch hunt, that's a really big problem.
Everything would fall apart. Everything would fall apart.
Everything is falling apart.
Like I said, for me, it's on the balance of probability. And one of the reasons I say that is that I think there was, they analyzed the rota over the course of more than 2 years. And it is said she was there. She was there on the shift, or she had recently left, on about 90%. 90% of those deaths. Now, I'm making up the 90%. It was overwhelming. She was there most of the time. And that's why I say, on the balance of probability, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying she should be classed as guilty in law.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. But it looks terrible.
So I recently spoke to the statistician. He's the lead voice on the Letby case. He's the guy that he freed. Do you know? Have you heard of the Lucia de Burge case? There's a Dutch neonatal nurse that was convicted of multiple M's, same as Lucy, and then she eventually got her conviction overturned. He's the guy that helped free her. This guy, he's been on every media organization, BBC. Like, his name is Richard Gill. Okay. I spoke to him on the phone for like a good 2 hours. Yeah, he was saying to me about this case, and he was saying that he doesn't think there's any evidence to suggest even that she was involved in medical negligence. I disagree. I believe that there should be civil trials in all of the cases because of what you just said. On the balance of probabilities, it does seem that she could have been involved in negligence that meets a civil standard, which is balance of probabilities, right?
Yeah.
What I think anyone who's really looked into the case and understands the statistical kind of methodologies that were used to present this evidence, there's no criminal case. There's no criminal case. But like you said, on the balance of probabilities, is it possible that someone who's there all the time when something happens could be involved in negligence? Of course it's possible. You know, they could have made a mistake. They could have got told to do something and not done it. There could be other people involved and she's involved and she knows that they're covering up, or, you know, she's the fall guy, but she was involved. The problem is that's not M. That doesn't meet the threshold for M. M is actually really difficult to prove. It's an intentional taking of the life or intentional act that the person knew would cause death or GBH to the victim. That's what M is. So right off the bat, there's no M. Then you could go to manslaughter. Okay, is it unintentional? Well, what is unintentional? First, you have to establish what was done to cause the death. That
That would
unfortunately
be
has not been established.
that would be the mens rea, her state of mind at the time, whether she had the intention to, the malicious. Well, you can have intention. The intention plus the act would make it malicious, because if you have the
Yeah,
intention to hurt somebody,
yeah. I
if you
think
have the intention to commit an act
Yeah, I
and
think
the act
with
affects somebody.
with
Hmm?
manslaughter, I think if you have an intention to do something that's criminal, but not kill them, and then the person dies, I think then you get convicted of manslaughter.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, I think there's a lot of collective, quote unquote, evidence that does not look good. There isn't any one, there's no smoking gun.
Yeah,
That's the problem. There's no smoking gun. But
yeah,
the quote unquote evidence that there is, it doesn't look good. That's, so
yeah.
I struggle with that one personally. But even on that, like I don't think, based, if I were to give evidence as to why I think she's guilty and things like that, I don't think the things I've got to say are enough to say somebody's guilty. It's not enough.
So Copacabana, you must concede then that if you were on the jury, you would have to say not guilty, because what you have just said is an expression of reasonable doubt. If you were on the jury, the
Okay,
instruction
so
from a judge that is sound of mind, he would say to you, if you have reasonable doubt as to the guilt of this person, you must acquit. That is the direction of the judge to the jury.
okay.
You have
Okay.
just expressed
I want to
reasonable
know
doubt.
something. I want to know something. Hang on.
Yeah.
How do we define reasonable doubt? This is why I ask. So, of all the evidence, we can pick out evidence 1, 2, 3. The pieces of evidence I'm looking at, all of them point towards, lean towards guilty. When you say reasonable doubt, I would say let's look at a piece of evidence. Actually, that piece of evidence makes me think. Well, it points the needle towards innocent. Or not guilty, shall we say? In the UK, there's not innocent. You just have not guilty.
Yeah.
But all the collective pieces of evidence I'm looking at move the needle towards guilty. That's the thing. When you say reasonable doubt, there's nothing that makes me doubt her guilt, but the pieces of evidence make me doubt her innocence. Do you see what I'm saying?
I got a question for you that I think could shine some light on what my argument is. Okay. Do you think it's possible that she killed them all by accident?
If she killed them, I don't think that she would have killed all of them by accident.
But do you think
Well,
it's possible that
okay. If she killed them, I think it was deliberate.
So
Because of the method.
you don't think it's
The method she
possible?
used.
You don't think
As
it's
a nurse myself, for example, injecting air, it's not something you do by accident, because when you're injecting using a syringe, there's no occasion we would ever inject an empty syringe just filled with air. It's always filled with medication.
But there's no evidence that she injected anybody with air.
There isn't. They're saying that's how the babies died. So
No, but
I'm
there
saying
isn't.
if
There
she
isn't
killed
evidence. The guy that came up with that narrative, he used the work of somebody called Dr. Sue, and that it was work done by this doctor in his formative years of his career, and he's an expert on air embolism, and he relied on this guy's work and said this guy presented this method of death called air embolism. This is how it did. The color of the skin of the baby suggests air embolism, and the guy himself came out and said publicly to the media, this did not happen. I'm the expert that this guy's relying on for his evidence. There's no air embolism. So they don't have any reliable evidence that she did anything with regards to injecting anyone with air. There's no evidence she did an injection. They've just presented this as a possible way that the babies are unalived, and it's been undermined as an argument. So she did not inject anyone with air. The same also goes for the insulin. She did not inject anyone with insulin. There's no evidence. They looked at the insulin levels of the babies, and again, Professor Gill said this to me verbatim, that the insulin levels of neonates cannot be measured in the same way as older children. 1, 2. If you read the New Yorker article on the Letby case, it talks about how if she were to introduce insulin to these babies, because of the apparatus that they were on, I think they were on a transfusion feed. they were having blood transfusion, she would not have been able to introduce the insulin to them in that way that they suggested. And finally, the method of measuring the insulin levels cannot be used for babies that are at that gestation to determine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just so you know, for example, knowing what I know, if I was a really terrible person, this sounds terrible to say, but if I was a terrible person and I wanted, to send somebody to meet their maker, insulin is one of the top ways somebody can do it. It is very difficult to prove. It is very difficult. Number one, with that tiny needle, you won't leave a mark on the body. You won't. I'm sure a coroner could say it, but you could never prove that's what happened.
Yeah.
So by that, you can't use that piece of evidence. So your question was,
is there reasonable doubt, basically, in your mind?
There would have to be, unfortunately. I don't like it, but there would have to be.
And remember what I was saying before. It's not about, we have to take our personal feelings and take them out of it. If there's reasonable doubt, we must acquit. And in addition, this case is so interesting to me because it raises so many questions about the reliability of juries. It raises questions about, because think about it. Let's say, for example, Lucy did unalive those babies using insulin. How could we prove it? Because basically, in a case like this, there's always kind of going to be reasonable doubt. It's very difficult to do criminal investigations on on things that happen on neonatal wards. How do I know? Because one, I've been involved in an investigation in the neonatal ward. Two, I'm part of the criminal prosecution again. Well, I go to the meetings that are part of the criminal prosecution against Nottingham University Hospitals Trust. So I speak to the heads of the police that are conducting the largest criminal investigation in the history of Nottingham against this trust, and they tell us about the difficulties in pursuing investigations against these kinds of cases. I propose that the conclusion that we have to come to is that we have to put cameras on these wards. There's no way to convict these people unless there's an eyewitness seeing what they do, which is unlikely going to be if they're doing it covertly. One, and two, like you just said, if they're using insulin and injecting someone with a cannula or whatever, there's reasonable doubt. Was it an accident? Was it short? Was it the short staffing? Were they sleepy? Like, an M conviction on a neonatal ward is very, very difficult.
It's very, very difficult. The cameras thing in the NHS, that I'm telling you now, in A&E, some A&Es, they're wearing body-worn cameras.
Yeah.
But the cameras thing on hospital wards, that will never happen. That, like, I would be almost willing to bet my life that will never happen. Number one, why? Even if the hospital wanted to do it, it would have to be a prison because patients wouldn't want it. I don't know if a single person, there's a lot of bad things that go on in the NHS, but I don't know if a single person that's compos mentis that would say, I want a camera. The occasion it would happen, it would be family members with an elderly person who isn't compos mentis who would say, yes, I want a camera in that room. But other than that, because look at it this way, how many care home atrocities go on? And family members have to put in cameras themselves.
Yeah.
And the hospitals will never allow it because it's going to expose them.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I think our sample of experiences is so different. You've probably got more of a unbiased sample because you're dealing with everyday patients and seeing what their disposition is. My sample of individuals is basically all harmed parents and all, you know what I'm saying? So everybody that I speak to is going to say, yeah, get the cameras on the ward. But you probably deal with more staff, more patients than I ever have. So
I deal with it, yeah. And there's so much. I'll tell you something as well. Like, I work self-employed, and I would basically, although I've been working here and there, I would class myself as not as basically jobless at the moment. Although I'm working self-employed shifts here and there. And that's because when you're a person of integrity, you will get pushed up by the NHS. Yeah. I left my first job after 6 months because I had an argument with a quote-unquote senior nurse because they weren't doing observations properly. For example, you're supposed to do someone's blood pressure, this and that, at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're doing the 8 o'clock and then putting it into the computer at 11 p.m. So if that person deteriorates, and possibly passes away at 9-10 p.m.
Yeah,
there's nothing. You put the obs in at 11 p.m. and that's not true, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
So if the people that have integrity will get pushed out.
Is it with the
So
with the observations? Is there even a way to guarantee that the person did the observation at the time that they wrote it in? Because I've seen the ob
no.
sheets, and it just
So
looks like they could just write. They could literally at the end of the day or at the end of their shift just write in all the. Surely they could just make them all
So,
up.
for example, there's no way, if you just look at, there's no way to guarantee that that person did them at the time that they say they did them.
Yeah.
However, on the computer, you are supposed to say when you did it if you did it at another time. Now, because I know what I'm looking at, I could probably tell that somebody has written incorrect values. For example, some people don't count breaths. Let's say the four people before them have counted breaths, and that person just comes in and puts 16, 17 because that's normal. But that person's actual baseline is like 21. Now, 21 would score, but it's not bad. You can tell when people are kind of faking it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could never prove it without doubt, but if you know what you're looking at, that's why a lot of the time I do my own observations. But
Yeah, sure. But what is the argument against digitized medical notes? Like, doesn't that just solve the problem at least to a greater extent? Where if the medical notes are digitized, then we know exactly what time they were put in.
so most places, 80-90% of the places I go to, the medical notes are digitized.
Yeah.
Nottingham, that trust I know is quite outdated. My
Yeah.
mother has worked there. My cousin had a baby there last month, so I know I've heard stories.
Yeah.
So I've worked in hospitals in England, in Scotland. In Scotland is not really digitized a lot, neither
Yeah.
is Wales, but most NHS hospitals it's now digitized, and you've got
Okay.
something called an audit trail. Now,
Yeah.
it tells you when it was actually entered into the system, and when it was amended and things like that. And
Yeah.
within the notes, you can write. I normally write what time I did things.
Okay, that's good. Well, that's a positive change, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
if
So, for
that's
example, it's easier with subject access requests because it's already in the system, and you can't change an audit trail.
yeah, yeah, man. Like, it's always really good speaking to you because you present a measured perspective. Obviously, we didn't necessarily agree on this, but you know, people say, "Oh, if people don't agree with me, I kick them off." But you know, that's how you disagree. You know,
Exactly.
a reasonable way. You know, you've got the experience. You know what you're talking about. Obviously, we have different experiences. Then we have experiences that overlap. So, you know, we don't all have to agree. But I think, in a way, I would say you did concede some parts of it with regards to the reasonable doubt.
I've conceded all
With
of
regards
it
to the
because-
reasonable doubt. But I will also say that I concede that, you know, my sample size, with some of my solutions, my sample size of who I speak to is very biased. And it would be great to speak to more everyday patients with some of my, like, you know, wild solutions.
Absolutely. No, but I appreciate that. But what I can't stand is when you're debating with somebody and people, when you ask a question, people won't answer the question. Or people are not willing to concede if they're wrong. And people are just think the way they think is correct and you can't change their minds. But yeah, no, I appreciate that. No, thank you very much.
Always good, man. Good luck to you. I think you're moving to, what country are you moving to? Somewhere in Central America, isn't it?
So, yeah, I'm going to Colombia.
Colombia, that's it. Yeah.
Just,
Or
I'll
South
be
America.
visiting in August, and then I'm planning to go over there. Then my daughter and obviously partner are there.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, I hope to speak to you soon. Like, you know, obviously
for
I
sure,
go
I'll be
live a
around.
lot. So,
Feel free to make me mod.
yeah, I'll probably do you and Homegrown as mods, but I need to get around to it. I always forget at the end of the live.
Yeah.
But, okay.
No worries.
All right. Peace, man.
Alright.
Peace. Yeah, maybe we should get some moderators up in here. Maybe that'll stop me getting banned and start crashing out against people that like trigger me. What did you say? What did you say? Sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to watch how I respond to them because then like in our case against the ward, they'll like clip me like crashing out, and one of you guys like, how dare you disagree with, like, see, look how he responds when people don't agree with him. But yeah, so if anybody else wants to debate this topic, feel free. We're live right now, guys. Check us out on YouTube. We've actually got 16 viewers currently on YouTube at State of Deception on YouTube. That is the YouTube channel, and I'm really actually happy with how it's going because, you know, 16 concurrent viewers to me, just starting off, you know, And we get some comments. Shout out to the YouTube gang. I can see you guys in the comments. Can YouTube gang, if you're still there, please just give a hey in the comments. And TikTok gang, obviously, you know, the OGs, we're still here. We got 50 people viewing live on TikTok. Guys, tap the screen to like the live and share the live as well if you want someone to come and destroy me in this discussion. Or if you think I'm talking real sense and it's like, yeah, you're like, yeah, people need to hear this. Like, so-and-so said something about the Letby gays, isn't it? I think she should talk to Hammer. No. So-and-so said this. I think he should talk to Hammer because, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, knock him off his high horse or elevate him because he knows what he's talking about or he doesn't know what he's talking about. Whichever. Share the life. Wesley said, need moderators. Naomi Darling's done a little heart. Thank you, YouTube gang. We got 17 concurrent viewers. That means that somebody heard me and they popped over to YouTube. So while you're there, press the subscribe button. That's not difficult. Come on. Let's get some of the comments. We've got Green Tea says, she is innocent. Hospital looking after their bonus. Sad state of affairs, isn't it? Now, I got a question for you guys in the chat, actually. Now, this might be a difficult one. Hey, MG. Hey, Wesley. Thank you guys for supporting. This is a question for you guys. Okay, everybody. If you accidentally unalived a child and you knew you would lose your livelihood, lose your profession, it would destroy your life, would you confess? That is my question. How many people would really confess to accidentally unaliving a child? I would argue that most people would not confess. So it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one. Because I could say myself, oh, look at me, I'm a bastion of honesty. Like, but I've pled not guilty to things I've done before as a youth, as a young adult. You know, I had a fraudulent use of a registration mark. I had a fake number plate a few years back. I didn't plead guilty. Would people really plead guilty to something of that seriousness and that magnitude, something with consequences of that magnitude? I don't think they would. So that's where it gets interesting, is like, are these people that we think are evil and think are shifty and dodgy and liars and God complex egomaniacs, is it that, or have they bitten off more than they can chew? Have they put themselves in a profession with more responsibility than they realize that they would have, and now to save themselves, to save their family, they just think, well, let me just go until retirement. As long as I get out before retirement, you know, I'll pray about it in church after pension age. Is that what they do? Are they as bad as we think, or is this just human nature? Homegrown says, we all know the consequences outweigh most people's morality. Yeah. Guys, we've got 4,200 likes. I think we can boost the likes up. Everyone, you know, we've got 56 people in the live. If everyone does 100 likes, that's another 5k likes. That'll get us to 10k. And that's literally our target. So we're 42% to our target. Everyone watching on YouTube, you guys can see that we're 42% to the target. And if you're good at maths and you know that 10k is the target on TikTok, then you know that 4.2k is 42% of 10k. So boost us, guys. Tap the screen to like the live. More comments. So how did the babies get unalived then? Answer, stop yapping. It's called medical negligence. So if you look at the review that was done by the panel of experts, they presented causes of death for almost all of the children. I think they said 2 of them they believed were unalived by 2 of the consultants, 2 of the doctors on the ward. Then I think they said, they basically attributed all the deaths to poor care. In fact, should we just get that up so people can hear it? Will that, will it? I worry that it won't come out my speakers loud enough. No, I don't think I can play. No, I don't think I can play it out loud. I don't want to start fiddling around with my. Let me just listen to it, and then I'll say what they say. Oh, and also let me respond to the YouTube comments as well, not just the TikTok. So, Tinkle says exactly, the economic system forces you to stay quiet, i.e. you need money under capitalism to survive. Exactly. MG says doctors need to remember why they wanted to be doctors. It's kind of like that Animal Farm thing, isn't it? What's the quote at the end of Animal Farm? The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again, but already it was impossible to say which was which. The quote at the end of Animal Farm. This line symbolizes the pig's complete transformation into the very oppressors they initially rebelled against, highlighting the corruption of power and the cyclical nature of tyranny. Naomi Darling says, yes, Dewey Evans set her up, referring to Lucy Letby. Indeed, it does seem like that a shifty individual who apparently, from what I've heard, his reputation is not too good with being a medical expert. I believe that the NHS does use the same medical experts over and over again when they're trying to push a narrative. Veronica says, hey. Wesley says, expert global account. Okay, Dr. Shu Lee. Yeah, lay it off. Okay, let's pull up Dr. Shu Lee. Have we got a shortened version of what they said? Yeah. Okay, this is Dr. Shu. Oh, you guys won't be able to hear. Right. I think I can make an audio input, but I really don't want to mess this up. Okay. Audio input capture. Let's make one. And then it would be... Oh, hold on. Is it? No, there's like a button that's like measure. See, this is what I was trying to avoid. Let's just, I know, I'll put closed captions and I'll just read it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so he said, we did not find any M's in all cases. Death or injury were due to natural causes or just bad medical care. There were serious problems related to the medical care of patients at this hospital, referring to the Countess of Chester Hospital, the hospital where the babies are unalived at. There were problems related to teamwork and interdisciplinary collaboration at the Countess of Chester neonatal ward. There were plausible reasons, very, very plausible reasons for these babies' deaths. And there was a combination, if you take the totality of the 17 cases, there was a combination of babies being in the wrong place. Sorry, I'm just going to take this call quickly. Sorry, guys. Hello, Dad. You're right. I'm just on a live right now, but I'll call you back after. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right. Love you. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you. We got 18 concurrent viewers on YouTube, guys. If you pull up on the YouTube channel, please tap the subscribe button. We're just reading. Let's get that back up again. So there's 17 cases. Oh, sorry. Babies being in the wrong place. Delayed diagnosis, an inappropriate or absent treatment. It was not our brief to. It was not in our brief to comment on the wider issues facing the NHS or on other maternity reports that have been issued recently. But I would say to you too that there are clearly systemic factors that are at play that we've identified, as well as individual factors. Interesting. So this panel is basically saying that the way that different organizations collaborate in the care of children, whether it's the maternity and then the neonatal maternity ward and then the neonatal ward, and sometimes there's social care involved, sometimes there's senior management involved or external agencies if there's other needs that the child has. The way, what they call multidisciplinary collaboration or interdisciplinary collaboration, there's a systemic failure. This is what I experienced on the ward. So I'll give you guys some kind of examples of how it is being on a neonatal ward. These are real examples of things that actually happen. I say to a staff member, hi, when's my child ready to come off oxygen? The staff member writes down, Dad says he thinks baby is ready to come off oxygen. The doctor reads the note and tells social services, Dad thinks baby doesn't need the oxygen. Social services asks us, why do you think that the baby doesn't need oxygen? I respond, no, the hospital is lying. They say, why would the hospital lie? I say, I don't know. They write down, Dad doesn't understand the concerns being raised. Then it goes to the police. Let's say this escalates to the point where I'm making serious allegations against them of, fraud or whatever. It goes to the police. The police I say to the police, they are lying and fabricating evidence against me. The police look back at the record and say, you said you didn't want him to have oxygen. Why would this nurse lie? And shuts the case down. I go to the hospital later. This is a real story. I go to the hospital later, a year later. It's still on my record that they've said that I said this. And I say to the hospital staff member, I don't have social services involvement. I've not done anything wrong. And they say, well, I'll believe you because you said it, in a patronizing tone, thereby making me have a worse experience. I then avoid care on the ward. And by avoiding care on the ward, you know, now if my child needs medical care, I have to go out of my way to go somewhere else. So this is what an example of what I would describe as systemic issues. If you pinpoint every single layer of that, it's very difficult to find who's accountable. The nurse technically wrote down what I said. She wrote down that I said, I think he's ready to come off. Let me just block this idiot that keeps derailing the conversation. The nurse wrote down what I said, but the doctor interpreted the nurse's note wrong. And these problems are natural. It's natural to misinterpret the things that people say. But when you get people or organizations that don't take accountability, that's when it becomes a real issue. Do you get what I'm saying? Because when you don't take the accountability, it becomes impossible to identify the point at which the failure occurred. And then it just continues and continues and spirals until you get to the point where they're like, we're taking your kids away. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because you're interfering with care, you don't understand our concerns, and you don't want your kids to have oxygen. And I'm like, what is going on? That's the kind of thing that manifests as systemic issues. So in a child's death, that can easily happen, where it's like, baby needs this medicine at 2, right? Someone's meant to be on the shift at 2, but they have the day off. The person who's responsible for checking whether everybody's doing their shifts correctly is on maternity leave. They don't do that check. They don't realize that the person who's meant to administer it is off. Someone else fills in for them. They misread the handwriting. Like, these things really actually happen and cause deaths. I don't know if I explained that well, but that's what I mean when I say systemic issues. Someone put Chinese whispers. That is exactly what it feels like. And the problem is when you have a scapegoat, all people start doing is they just start twisting every narrative to align with the dominant narrative about the scapegoat. So I was the scapegoat. So then it's every time I say something, oh, the scapegoat's doing something again. It's him again. No, I'm telling you that there's a systemic error. But all you're hearing is the scapegoat keeps talking. Why is the scapegoat talking? He's wrong again. He keeps doing something wrong. No, the reason I'm talking is because I'm the scapegoat. So I have to keep telling you that's wrong. And then they're writing down stuff like, that is taking up disproportionate time of the staff on the ward. Yeah, because I have to keep telling you that you're being scapegoating me and I'm not doing anything. Do you get what I'm saying? Lucy, in this case, is a scapegoat. So what happens is every narrative that gets presented, people just twist it to line up against Lucy again. They never think, well, what if she didn't do the original thing in the first place? Then you don't have to keep trying to line up everything to fit the narrative that she did it, because she didn't do it in the first place. In other words, like with me, I didn't say I didn't want my kids to have oxygen. I asked when they're ready to come off. That's a completely different thing that completely destroys the whole house of cards you built about me not wanting my kids to have oxygen, because you just misheard me and then you didn't want to accept that you made a mistake. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, these are the kinds of issues we're facing. I think digitizing the medical notes will help to solve it to a much greater extent. Cameras on the ward, please, guys. We need cameras on the ward. Accountability. We really need a way of holding these people accountable. They are too powerful. A lot of people don't realize how powerful these people are. They are really, really powerful, and that's why they are able to use organizations to misdirect and then avoid accountability. Okay, comments. So what do you think happened if Lucy did nothing? Well, we kind of just went over that. Poor care, systemic issues. Anya, so the doctor's done it, not Lucy. Well, the panel believes that 2 of the doctors unalived 2 of the children. So that actually even gives a motive for them to try and frame someone else. Yeah, and guys, if you really should watch the Dr. Shu thing. I could actually play it for YouTube, for the YouTube. Wait, let's see. Hold on a sec. Okay, I don't know if YouTube can hear that. I wonder, can YouTube hear this? YouTube, when I play the video, can you guys hear on YouTube what I just did? Because if you can hear that, then I can actually technically play the video, and then you guys, if you want to watch, you can head on over to YouTube. I don't know if anyone's able to respond to that, about because we've got 19 viewers on YouTube. So did anybody hear when I just press play on that video? Realistically, I ideally want everyone on YouTube, because that's going to be the best way for us to do these lives moving forward, and I don't want to get banned. No one heard it? Okay. All right, no worries. Shun says, nurses I've met are some of the most twisted people she probably did. Okay, I'm not saying that TikTok live, by the way. That was somebody's comment that I repeated, so don't ban me. Anya says, but it doesn't make her less guilty. She played a part if there's a team involved. I don't think she is guilty. I definitely think that there's multiple people involved, and I think it's negligence. I don't think it meets the standard necessary to convict someone of M. Scotty says, are you aware she's appealing? She's not actually appealing. Well, she's appealing to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. She's not being given a formal appeal. Also, guys, if you want to support what we're doing, the documentary that we want to do is still actually going ahead. So you can actually subscribe on TikTok. All proceeds go to help fund our documentary to expose corruption in health and social care. We have hundreds of people that we want to interview. One of the guys that has agreed to interview for the documentary is actually, oh bloody hell, I forgot his name. Richard Gill, that's it. Richard Gill. So he's pretty much the foremost expert on the Letby case. He's agreed to be part of a documentary. We have other experts, world-renowned experts. Then we have nurse whistleblowers, doctor whistleblowers. So if we can get the funding for the documentary, we can make a really good documentary. But we're away yet. I think, should I get the GoFundMe up and see where we are at? Let's get the link tree up. So on the GoFundMe, we've got, and thank you to everyone that's donated, by the way. So on the GoFundMe, we've raised £208. The goal is 7.5k. So we're kind of away from our goal, but like, I still really appreciate everyone that's donated. And I think £200 is crazy, because I didn't think that people would donate. And subscribers, by the way, technically we have more, because I think subscribers have earned me like £100 or £200 on TikTok, which is not a lot. I don't know where my money, I don't know why I don't get the money. Anyway, I don't even care. But that £200 is also going to documentary. So technically we've raised £400. But if we want to make a proper documentary, I think we're going to need like 7.5k. And that's going to be through GoFundMe, so it's a donation protected. Yeah. Green Tea says, consultants have so much money to lose, they have targets, so let's blame a nurse. Yeah. It wouldn't have been the first time large entities have forged evidence. Exactly. Shun, he won't answer the diary question. The reason I kind of tend to avoid the diary question is because what I don't like is when people get lost in the weeds about the strength of a conviction by putting the cart before the horse. And the truth of the matter is, what she wrote in her diary doesn't actually matter if there's no evidence of M. So we have to deal with whether there's evidence for an M first before we deal with what a person's connection to an M is. There has to be an M for someone to be convicted of an M. So, but we can address the notes, because the notes say that she is innocent, and they also say, I did this on purpose because I'm not good enough to care for them. So it doesn't actually say, it doesn't say I committed M, and she didn't plead guilty to committing M. And she was in a consultation with a therapist who told her to write down all of her thoughts surrounding the matter. So is she referring to what people are saying about her? Why did she write she's innocent and also write I did it on purpose? Why is she writing I didn't do anything, help, and stuff like that? You know, if she admitted it, why didn't she plead guilty? You know, she's clearly saying that she didn't do it. So what she wrote down in that therapy session is not a confession. Remember, the therapy session is after she's already been accused. So she didn't do it and then write it down, and then they found, oh my God, you wrote this down. They asked her about it, and then she wrote it. So they are asking her thoughts after the fact. It would have been a stronger note if she wrote it before they even accused her of it or asked her about it. She wrote that after they asked her about it. Does that make sense? In other words, if I say to you, you just kicked me in the shin, and then you write down, I kicked him in the shin because it was an accident, right, or whatever. You only are talking about me kicking someone in the shin because I brought it up first. So it's not as reliable as if you kick me in the shin, go home and then write, I kicked someone in the shin today. Are people keeping up with me? Because I know, you know, some of you guys aren't very sharp, no offense, but I want to make sure that I'm I'm saying stuff in a way that even the slowpokes can understand. Prixie said she would never defend you as a black man, but here you are. Some people are so simple that all they can conceptualize anything as is like about color. It's actually fascinating. So that's what you got from everything I've said is, oh, I'm brown and she's not brown. That's all you got from this, really? This, how long have we been live? 1 hour, 21 minutes. All you've got is, I brown, she not brown. Were you dropped on your head? As like, think of everything we've just said. So you're saying that you're brown and she's not brown. Jupiter says, seems circumstantial, to be fair. Bro, what do you think will happen to her? I think she's gonna bust case, bro. Like, I think that she's genuinely gonna it's always the BWs as well. Like, what is up with the BWs? You got a crush on me, I get it. You got a crush. It's okay. It's okay. You got a crush. You trying to draw me out. You wanting me to give you my emotional energy. You got a crush. It's okay. You got a crush. Just say that you got a crush. Just say you got a crush. That's okay. Well done. You're so right. No facts. Don't worry about haters. Appreciate it. Can you post a report you've done on all 15 of the babies? Sorry for the loss of your daughter, bro. You need to bring these guys down. Yeah. Exactly. Someone's got to call him out. Prixie's saying she got a... What is that? He's sitting up here looking so handsome. Oh, thank you, Prixie. Prixie's got a crush on me. Prixie, just slide in my DMs. It's okay. It's okay. Jupiter, difficult to say innocent or guilty. Okay, fair enough. Ducking stool. I lost a good friend last year who was never okay after her baby died. She was very ill after birth. She was excoriating. What's that word mean? Excoriating about their behavior and the cover up. Wow. Thanks, Tracy. Wow, that's unbelievable. Yeah, you know, it is really hard. Like, I actually posted a video on TikTok today about my mental health today. My mental health today. This is one of my worst mental health days I've ever had. Genuine, like, thoughts of, like, you know, not being here and stuff. And it's one of the worst things. I mean, so losing my child is easily the worst thing I've ever been through. But I think it's actually probably the worst thing a person can go through. I've never heard anybody say something that I'm like, I would rather lose my child than that. And I've heard people's stories of rape, abuse, false imprisonment. Every time I hear someone else's story, I'm like, I would rather that than what has happened to me. And not only did they unalive my child and cover it up, they also tried to take my son using social services. And then they falsely accused me of harming my child. So these people have been trying to destroy me for pretty much 3 years. And now they're trying to put me in prison. For a serious offence as well. As in, if I get convicted, I'm going to get like 2 years in prison for trying to expose the fact that they covered up my child's death. So I can't really think of anyone that's been through anything worse than what I'm going through right now. Just being honest. But I wrote a poem once, and the last part of it is, we're only here to dream a bit, and all will surely die. You'll learn that ignorance is bliss, and women love their lies. So quench your thirst for knowledge with the fountain of your youth. The only thing I hope and pray is one day you'll know the truth. That's the last part of the poem. And what that basically means is we're only here to dream a bit. Everybody's going to go one day. So all I got to do is get through this dream, whatever this thing is, this life experience that we have. And soon I'll be in the ether. May It Be says, I believe God has more answers than what they say about people. Oh, sorry, I don't want to miss that comment. It almost got away from us. We got a fellow person who's lost a child. Sorry, I don't want this comment. Oh my gosh, where is it? Let me scroll. Sorry, I got to scroll on. Oh, if you need to talk, I lost my baby too. I get it. I know how you feel. My inbox is always open. Yeah, let me follow you right now, because like this is like my new family, the TikTok family. Unfortunately, guys, this is really sad. I never ever say bad things about my family, but my family are not able to support me in a way that I think it's just not possible to understand the feelings of someone that's lost their child. It's not possible to understand the feelings of someone that's been falsely accused. And we are raised to think, keep going, get on with it and stuff. And like, that is not a good idea for someone like me. Like, because I'm the type that will crash out. You understand what I'm saying? So like, you don't want to see me Axel Ruda Cabana. I can promise you that. So I don't think my family are equipped to actually give me the advice of what to do. I need like mental health support. I need people that have been through the same thing. So TikTok, I got my little TikTok family with regards to child loss. And I do like speaking to you guys. I'll be on the phone with you for little hours and that. Because I genuinely care about what you people say as well. So thank you to everyone that does offer me support and that. Wesley says, release the poems. Oh, the poems are getting released. So I'm writing a book about everything that's happened to us. And the way I'm going to structure it is I'm going to tell the story. And then every chapter, I'm going to put a poem in the chapter. And all the poems are poems that I've written since my daughter passed away. And then I'm also going to have some pictures in the book. So it's like the purpose of the book is, and I'll also do an audiobook. So that'll be available on TikTok Shop. Help us raise money for like documentaries, whatever, and that. It allows us to also have a time capsule for my children so that in the future, they will always know what happened. And no matter what these lies put in the records against me, they will know the truth of everything that happened. And it's also the same narrative that we're putting forward in our affidavit of truth against the hospital. So, yeah, I'm writing a book about it. And if you want to hear the poems, get the book. No, I do the poems sometimes on live, to be fair. We got a YouTube comment here from Veronica. It's a breath of fresh air to have someone young, energetic, and confident on YouTube defending Lucy Letby. He will appeal to a younger audience. Appreciate that. Yep. If you are watching on YouTube, give us a follow. We've got 21 concurrent viewers. I love that. Homegrown's on YouTube. Shout out to you, Homegrown. You're going to be a moderator soon. Don't worry, mate. Thanks for the heart, Misha. Appreciate you, B. Sorry, I don't know if you've messaged me recently. My inbox is obviously full still, but thank you for the support, the continued support. Karma Queen, keep fighting corruption, bro. Never give up. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a choice because I'm defending a criminal case where they're trying to put me in prison. I'm trying to get justice for my daughter. It's just, I don't even have a choice. Even if I wanted to give up, I wouldn't be able to. Let me slow it down a bit. I've been saying this, someone else definitely involved. If she done this, she didn't act alone. Okay. Inked up British Jamaican. Please expose them off UK soil. We're working on it. Shah says, oh, bless you, no worries. Hope you're okay. You know. Yeah. It doesn't get easier, that's the thing. And it's like little things trigger me as well. Like someone, like even on here, sometimes I'll be honest, like sometimes people actually are able to get to me, which I never thought would happen. But when people say stuff like, oh, you're lying, I'm like, why would you come on here and say that? Why would you come on here and try and trigger me like that? And in my day-to-day life as well, like so many triggers everywhere. Thanks for the gift, Shah. Appreciate you. Great book. Yeah, audiobook. Yeah, I think the audiobook will be good. I'll read it out myself. If you're not sick of my voice yet, then you'll be sick of my voice after you hear the audiobook of us telling you all the horrendous things that these people did to us on the ward. Absolutely horrendous things. Just disgusting people. Disgusting people. Disgusting people. Why is Lucy not guilty? Well, there's not enough evidence to convict her. That's basically the long and short of it. And all the evidence that's been presented has been refuted. All the supposed evidence has been refuted. Helen says, I was just writing up my new triggers from NHS abuse and victimisation. Anybody who wants to come on and talk about their victimisation by the NHS, feel free. Because I think that does add a lot of value to these lives. Because then people kind of get an idea of do you know what I mean? What kind of things these people do and that it's not just made up. Melanistic Marble says on YouTube, I only joined at 10 o'clock, but I know Amma has a link with the Lucy Letby case. Dr. Marnarides, if I spelled the name right. Yes, it's Dr. Marnarides. And Dr. Marnarides, since I don't mind whistleblowing this now, or I don't know, exposing this now, because these lives are recorded, so this will go on YouTube, so I'm exposing it. As in, it's going to be on record that I said this. Dr. Marnarides is also involved in a case of a child called Alfie Lamb. People need to start looking into this Alfie Lamb case. I've done a lot of research on this case. I've actually read the the court case. So Alfie Lamb is a child who was allegedly killed by being crushed by a car seat by his stepfather. So and Alfie Lamb had he was born premature. He had a lot of health conditions, and Alfie Lamb was a baby. He was in the back seat of his car, and I think the car had his mother. He was between his mother's legs in the back seat of the car. So they're saying that his stepfather unalived him by moving the front seat back into him and crushing his chest. But Alfie Lamb, that happened. Alfie Lamb got out of the car and collapsed when he got out of the car. He was then rushed to, I believe, Alderhay Hospital in Liverpool, and then he passed away a few days later. The stepfather got convicted of gross negligence manslaughter for the death of this child, and the reason he was convicted of gross negligence manslaughter is because he said, yes, I did push the chair back into the child, but it didn't cause the child's death. Andreas Marnarides wrote a statement, gave medical expert evidence saying that was the cause of death, that him doing that he admitted doing was the cause of death. So then he got he pled guilty to gross negligence manslaughter because obviously his lawyer said to him, I'm assuming, look, the medical expert has said that that's caused the death. You've admitted you've done it. You're gonna get convicted. You might as well plead guilty to gross negligence manslaughter. Does that make sense? This guy is the guy that presented the air embolism case in the Letby case. This guy is the guy that's saying that my daughter died of natural causes, even though he wrote that the pathophysiological cause of death was a collapsed right upper lung, which the medical notes clearly say that the staff collapsed her lung. So they're basically saying she died because of a collapsed lung, but this is natural causes. So this is what Mr. Marnarides wrote. He wrote that this Alfie Lamb was unalived through the stepfather pushing the chair back onto the baby's chest, and so that connects three cases. Now the interesting thing about the Alfie Lamb case is Alfie Lamb was being treated experimentally by Alderhay with midazolam to control, I think he used to have seizures or something like that, or he used to have collapses, and they were treating him with midazolam. He also, when he passed away in the hospital, there was evidence to suggest that the treatment of the child when he got to hospital was actually, I believe there's evidence to suggest this, was actually the cause of death. So they have in my personal opinion, they have framed this father, and he's actually in prison currently. He was convicted in 2019. No one else, I promise you, I did not get this online. I got this from my own personal research into this guy, Andreas Marnarides. So you guys tell me what you think about that. The same guy has presented this air embolism case in the Letby case, which has been refuted. He's got this narrative about this guy unaliving a child by pushing a chair back on him while he's in the back seat. That doesn't make sense. And then he's saying that a child who has a collapsed lung, and that collapsed lung is the cause of death, died of natural causes, when the notes literally say that they collapsed the child's lung and they used the wrong apparatus and they collapsed the child's lung. Can you explain how that's a natural causes death? Shan says, why is he doing all of this? See, now you're asking the question that keeps me up at night, the question that puts a target on my back, the question that makes these people want to put me in prison. The truth is that these people are a criminal gang. That's the truth, and that's just what the public doesn't want to believe. They are a criminal operation, a cult, whatever you want to call it. They are a criminal network. They traffic children. I don't know. I'm not going to say these individuals do this, but there are networks within the NHS that are organised crime networks. They traffic children. They traffic organs. They unalive people and they cover it up. And when they want to cover something up, they know who to pick, because they go, oh, let's put Andreas on it. He's helped us in the other case, so let's get Andreas on it because he's going to say what we want him to say because he knows that we pay his bills. I'm not making that allegation against the man. I'm just saying things like that happen in the NHS. I've got to protect myself. Things like that happen in the NHS. They get these Dewey Evans type people and they know that they're going to toe the line. And they, you know, Dewey Evans bragged about how he bought his new house and his new car and his son's BMW or whatever, using the money he gets being a medical expert witness. So these are networks of criminals, and there are networks of criminals in every sector, especially in the most powerful sector in the country, which is the healthcare sector. So if you guys think that there's corruption in politics, corruption in the oil industry, corruption in the food industry, corruption in, you know, automotive industry, corruption in the chemical manufacturing industry, but you think there's no corruption in the health industry, the most powerful one of all, you're smoking rocks. And if you think that there aren't organised crime networks in the NHS, it's okay. Just go back to sleep. Because you're going to be sleeping good. Because I'm the one that has the nightmares, you know, the PTSD. You can sleep good. Go back to sleep. It's okay. You've got that nice cold, flip the pillow to the cold side. Flip the pillow to the cold side. And, you know, I listened to Amma's live today. He's still a conspiracy theorist. Flip the pillow to the cold side and just go back to sleep. It's okay. I wish I was in your position. Ignorance is bliss. Just go back to sleep. It's okay. Sasha, am I saying that right? Sasha? Leif Meresh is requesting to speak. We've got 21 views on YouTube. Guys, subscribe on YouTube. Don't be shy. We're going to be pumping out videos soon. Hello, what's up?
Yo, what's up? You good?
Yes.
I just want to ask, I watched a documentary on this and, like, I don't understand why the NHS would frame, like, she's clearly not all right. There's a diary of her writing and plotting all the stuff she was going to do. And I just want to understand also, what was the motive for the NHS to cover this up and kill babies?
Okay, so let's address the diary point first. So what in particular are you saying it represents her planning?
She'd write the names of the babies down that she'd kill.
Before they died or after they died?
After they died.
So she wrote a baby's name down.
And there was a bunch of like not poems, just texts of like how she liked doing stuff like this.
Really? Like what quote? Like what did you read in particular?
The only thing I can be sure of is she'd write the names of the babies down she'd killed. But there was something else. I don't have the evidence on me, but what makes you think the NHS is framing people and that Lucy Letby's not guilty?
A perusal of the evidence and the fact that I know that they frame people because they tried to frame me.
What happened with you?
They harmed my child. I tried to expose it. They reported me to social services and tried to have my kids taken from me. I exposed that they were doing that. I covertly recorded them. and beat them in the high court. They tried to frame me for my daughter's death, and then they killed my daughter, and then they covered it up, and they tried to frame me for it.
I'm really sorry for that, but what happened? What went wrong? How did your daughter die?
Through the same ways that children die a lot on neonatal wards: poor care, systemic issues, false diagnoses and delayed diagnoses, ventilator errors.
I understand that as a collective though, because if the NHS is trying to cover themselves up, that's something different. But with Lucy Letby, that's a single murderer. She's literally a serial baby killer. What's the reason for them covering her up? Or are they framing her? Like, what are you trying to say?
They're framing her.
So what did kill the babies? What was the actual blame?
Medical negligence.
From Lucy Letby?
Well, it hasn't been seen because it hasn't been a civil trial. I think there should be a civil trial, but we know it's pretty definitive that it's medical negligence. It's definitely not murder.
But do you not think it's medical negligence from Lucy Letby? Isn't there enough evidence?
Personally, I don't think that it is, but I think that there should be a civil trial to establish whether there has been or not.
She was in the room every time a baby died.
That's because
she was always present there.
That's because she wasn't always present every time a baby died. She works on a neonatal ward. You realise that?
Yeah.
So if you work on a neonatal ward and you're caring for babies that are sick, that have been transferred to that hospital deliberately because of the tier of care that hospital is able to provide, in other words, they are receiving the sickest children on purpose because of how they structure care in the NHS. That means that it's highly likely for an experienced nurse to be on the ward repeatedly when a neonate passes away.
But do you not think part of what's it called? Part of charging someone with this crime of murdering babies is finding out the motive, and they did find a motive of why she did that.
They didn't find a motive.
What was her diary all about, and all those pictures she'd have of the babies? Isn't that a bit weird?
Whether it's weird or not has no bearing on whether she committed an M. First, you'd have to establish that an M has happened. Then you can look at the other evidence surrounding it, which I'm not saying it's irrelevant evidence, but the most key point is what is the evidence that she committed an M? And what is the motive?
The names of babies who have died.
No. So you're doing it again. I'm asking you a different question. I'm not asking you about the other notes. I'm asking you what's the evidence that she committed an M.
Well, that I'm not sure about. I just know there's evidence of her motive.
Okay, so imagine if I say that you robbed a bank, yeah, and then you say, well, I've stolen a thing or two before, and, maybe I would rob a bank if I wanted to get money. And then I'm like, aha, why would you say that? And then we look at the CCTV and the bank didn't get robbed. Does it matter whether you said that or not? It doesn't even matter whether you said it or not because the bank didn't get robbed.
But they only look at the motive and start investigating you after the crime has happened, after something's been linked to you.
Well, if a group of consultants get...
How did they link her? How did they find that it was... why did they go search her house?
Because a group of consultants from the ward got together and told the police to initiate an investigation on her. And that's what they do. Police do what the doctors say. They do what the social services say. They're just robots. They're not as intelligent and adept as you guys think that they are. They're just a bunch of normies that do what people say. I'm not trying to disrespect them, but that is what they are. They're not super intelligent investigators. Maybe if you're talking about Scotland Yard M investigations, and you could argue that this would have intelligent investigators on it, but it didn't. It's just had people that aren't very intelligent doing what consultants say. There's probably money involved, invested interests involved, and they're just lemmings. They don't even understand a basic statistical fallacy, which is cherry picking. Just like you don't understand it. You're saying why was she present for all of the deaths, but that's not evidence that she did anything, because there could be many reasons why she's present, and they also excluded all of the deaths where she wasn't present. So why didn't they include? Well, I know why they didn't include all the deaths when she wasn't present, because that's how the process. That's the flaw. That's a flaw of our legal system, is how prosecutions present cases. They present the case and leave out all of the other relevant evidence. It doesn't make sense that a prosecution can come and be like, oh, look at all of these cases where she was there when the baby died, and leave out all the times when the babies died when she wasn't there.
How many babies died when she wasn't there?
A lot.
How much?
A lot.
Do you have a number?
I mean, the number would be Countess of Chester. Okay, let's say Countess of Chester deaths in what? The past, because it was a spread over like a 3 or 4 year period, wasn't it? Let's just say annual baby death rate. Like in a year, a lot of children are gonna, like for example, before 2015, so in 2015 there were 8 deaths, 5 in the first half of 2016. So this is the neonatal unit. Then there's going to be maternity as well. So basically, in other words, there were other deaths when she wasn't there.
So there were 8 deaths in total?
For one of the year, in 2015 there were 8 deaths.
Okay. I know what happened with your experience with the NHS and the whole issue with your daughter, but do you not think there's a bias?
What's the bias?
Because something happened to you, that means that Lucy Letby has also been framed and been ganged up on by the consultants in the NHS or something.
So you think I'm biased against the NHS?
Yeah, I mean, you're making it seem like the NHS are bad people.
They are.
Why?
Because they are infiltrated by networks of criminals that get away with the things that they do because people like you don't understand what's going on.
So I don't understand. Why is there no coverage on this? What criminals are you talking about?
So do you think that the government is going to cover what they do? Like, if someone's corrupt, why would they cover themselves?
But the NHS, you think the NHS is really tight-knitted with the government. It's not.
It is.
It's not that tight-knitted with the government.
Who funds the NHS?
The government.
So how are they not tied in if they are receiving their money from the government?
I don't have enough knowledge on this, but so it's the negligence and the death of the babies. That's what they're trying to cover up.
Yes.
Just people working poorly.
Yeah, I mean, is that hard for you to? I'm not even trying to patronize you. Genuinely, is it hard for you to believe that someone wouldn't want to be held accountable for a child's death? If you accidentally killed a child, would you go and admit it and ruin your life?
Of course I would.
Do you think most people would?
Isn't that just an assumption on your side then?
I'm asking you, do you think that most people, if they accidentally killed a child, would admit it and ruin their whole life?
Yes, if they accidentally, yes.
You think most people would do it?
Yes, because they accidentally killed the child. They didn't murder the child. They're not trying to cover up their murder.
It doesn't matter. They're still gonna have their life ruined.
Their life's ruined as soon as they killed the child. They accidentally killed the child.
So you don't believe
they're gonna die? They're literally gonna die from guilt.
No, they don't care. A lot of them don't care. They're not the same.
If it's by accident, how can they not care? It's not like they were plotting to kill the child.
But why do they have to admit what they did when they can cover it up?
Because they have morals.
But who?
Not all people are bad people, you know. What? That's your assumption.
It's not about whether they're good or bad. It's about whether they're going to be held accountable or not. If they don't think that they're going to be held accountable, why would they hold themselves accountable? Okay, let me ask you this. Who documents the medical notes on a ward?
I don't know.
It's the staff themselves, right? They write the medical notes. So why would they write a medical note that says, I just did this, instead of just writing a medical note that says, I don't know what happened? They control the narrative. That's basically what I'm trying to say. It's like this. Let's say there's a criminal who's done something, And instead of you doing an investigation into the criminal, independent, you ask the criminal, did you do it? Do you think the criminal is going to be like, yes? You give them a pen and paper, say, right, if you say you did it, we're going to arrest you. And if you say you didn't do it, we're not going to arrest you. Now you tell us if you did it or not.
But that's not how an investigation goes.
Who documents the medical notes? The staff.
Yeah.
What is the series of events to determine what happened based on? The staff's medical notes. So that is basically what is happening, is that in order to determine what happened, we're relying on what the staff members write down. So if they write down it didn't happen, then it didn't happen.
So you're assuming
According
that
to them.
all the staff members working there were all lying and they were all like plotting on framing Lucy Letby, but Lucy Letby herself is innocent.
It's not all the staff members. I'm saying when the deaths happened, they probably didn't immediately write down.
You don't think that there would be a single person, like a single whistleblower, who'd go, wait, guys, there's something wrong going on here.
You mean like me?
What?
You mean like me?
No, but you weren't involved in the Lucy Letby case.
I wasn't involved in the Letby case, but my case is connected to the Letby case. Connected
how?
Because the same guy that presented the method of death of air embolism is he put that in his expert testimony. He also is the same guy that said my daughter died of natural causes and she didn't. Everyone is telling you guys about what's going on with this case, but you just don't want to believe it.
I don't know. I just feel like it's delusion as well. You say ignorance is bliss, but like so is delusion.
Yeah, you are delusional.
No, so are you.
How am I delusional? What have I said that's delusional?
You're just making so much assumptions here.
What assumption have I made?
That all the consultants got together and plotted and framed like. That's not a delusion. They literally. This is documented. You can look up the Thurwell inquiry. The consultants got together and presented the case to the police, and they led the investigation. How is that delusional? That's literally what happened. And the police, when they led the investigation, they would just take the consultant's word for it without even seeking evidence.
They took the evidence that the consultants gave them about Lucy being present on the ward in those times.
So you actually think Lucy Letby is just the same person?
It doesn't matter whether she's sane. It matters whether she committed an M, and she didn't.
That's just an assumption. You don't have proof that she didn't.
Yeah, I do actually.
What's your proof?
The proof is the fact that all of the evidence that they presented to suggest that she did it has been refuted.
Refuted by who?
Refuted by, in some cases, the person who said it has withdrawn the statement. In some cases, the experts that the medical experts are relying on have come out and said, you're using my work wrong, that's not right. She got convicted of an M when she wasn't even present, or an M that she wasn't even present for. Like, they presented another method about the insulin, and they've completely misrepresented how you measure insulin in neonates. So there's no there's no methodology. Then they've done a review with a panel of experts, and the panel of experts have reviewed all of the deaths and determined that two of the babies were unalive by the doctors, and then they've covered it up, and all the deaths were due to poor care. You're the one that's delusional because you're just believing a media narrative and you don't even know what you're doing. You're not looked into the case at all. So how am I delusional when I actually know what I'm talking about?
You caught me there.
What? But but let's just marinate on this for a second.
No. But
hold on.
In investigation.
Hold on. I want to ask you a genuine question. I want to ask you a genuine question. How can you be so confident about something that you've never looked into? Don't you think that's weird? Isn't that the shouldn't?
Bro, I'm sorry, but the motive is just so obvious.
But that's like a massive red flag that you're so adamant about something that you've never looked into. Doesn't that tell you that you're brainwashed?
In a diary.
But think about it. Doesn't it tell you that you're brainwashed when you're so adamant about something that you've never looked into?
No.
But how can you know what you're talking about?
The experts that are for Lucy Letby's arrest are more than the experts that are trying to say no. Actually, she's not guilty. She's not guilty. She's innocent.
Okay, so who pays the experts?
I don't know.
Have you ever thought about it? If
And you
there's
don't think one of those experts would
if
go...
there's a legal case, yeah, where somebody presents a medical expert to the jury, who pays the medical expert? The hospital trust, right? So the hospital trust that's trying to frame Lucy Letby is the trust that pays the medical experts that you're talking about, right? And you don't think there's anything about that indicates that maybe the medical experts are going to go along with what that NHS trust says.
But that's so... Like, who else is going to pay them?
But the fact that they're being paid implies that they...
What do you mean implies? They're being paid for their job.
Exactly, which gives them a motivation to do what the trust wants them to do.
Bro, experts aren't that gullible. You're not going to pay a lawyer. If you do something, you're not going to pay a lawyer and then that lawyer's going to, oh, I've got money now, I'm going to, like...
So you don't
think...
So you don't think that you can pay somebody to agree with your narrative?
Bro, why do you think, like, humans are just so easy to trick and, like, so gullible? These are experts you're talking about.
You don't think that
their
you
whole
don't
life for this, studied law and shit.
You don't think that humans are gullible?
No, some are.
What religion do you follow?
I'm not religious.
But majority of the world is religious. So so by the fact that you don't follow their religion, that means that you believe that they've been basically duped. They believe something that's not true. So you actually believe that the majority of the world is gullible?
No.
Then why
don't make assumptions like you?
Why are you not religious? Why do you not believe in an Abrahamic religion? Majority of the world.
It's a personal belief.
Okay, so are all the people that believe in an Abrahamic religion, are they correct?
They're neither correct or wrong.
No, but you don't believe that they're correct because you don't believe the same thing as them. So you believe that they are incorrect.
We can have different beliefs. That's why it's called belief in faith.
Exactly, but you don't follow the same belief as them, which means that you think their belief is not true. Right?
I think it's not true, but it's not false either.
No.
It's just unproven.
If you don't believe it, it means you think it's not true. So you believe that the majority of the world believes something that's not true. So you believe the majority of the world has been duped.
Okay.
So you believe that most people can be duped and are gullible because you believe that most people believe in religions that aren't true.
No.
But yes.
No, because having faith in a religion isn't being called gullible.
Okay, but why do they believe? But you believe that they have been duped. You believe that they believe something that isn't true. Otherwise, why do they?
Prove that,
if they haven't been duped, then doesn't that mean what they're saying is correct?
Can I prove that their religion is false?
You don't have to prove it, but by the fact that you don't agree with their belief, it means that you think.
I don't agree with it, but I'm not saying it's wrong.
So you're saying it could be true?
Yeah.
Okay, so it could be true, but you don't believe it. So why don't you believe it? It's because you think
it's just a personal outlook on life.
Yeah, because you think it's more likely to be false than true.
It's just not convincing enough. I'm not saying it's not true. It's not convincing enough, and that can be linked to that thing as well. It's more convincing that Lucy Letby's guilty than that she's innocent.
It's more convincing to many people because they're gullible.
So you call people who don't agree with you gullible?
No, I call people who believe something without... I believe people who believe something that they've never looked into just because the media told them are gullible.
But it's not just the media, it's a whole police investigation.
Have you looked into the police investigation?
No.
So what convinced you then?
It was the pics of the babies and like the names in the diary. I can't lie. I'm being honest with you. Like that's what convinced me.
So someone is guilty of M because they have pictures of the babies and
In context of what happened, yeah.
In context of what happened, what happened?
She was the person who was like suspected of being involved in all those cases, and when the police searched her house, they found that. How are you not going to make that connection? You're gullible if you don't make that connection.
Please never do jury service. Please.
I won't, don't worry.
Like, just tell them that, like, you have, like, some kind of deficiency. Just tell them that. I'm not saying you. Just tell them, like, I'm mentally deficient. I don't.
You're just being rude now.
No, I'm just saying, tell them that so that.
Because
like,
I don't agree with you. I have a mental deficiency.
I'm just saying, don't do jury service.
But bro, I'm sorry. It's so obvious you have a bias and you're just conspiring because out of like personal things that happened in your life.
Wait, the personal thing that happened is that my child was killed by a neonatal nurse, right?
Yeah.
So why would I not be biased against neonatal nurses and think that she's guilty? Yeah, smoke on that for a bit, bro. You can think about that while we get someone else. Ravens get... Oh my god! No way! No way. Hello?
Hello?
Greater Glasgow and Clyde whistleblower.
Absolutely.
Oh my god, bro! I've seen all your videos.
Him stay in there because I wanted to talk to him while he was there.
I've seen all your videos, bro. No,
How you doing?
No way, man. No way. I'm so honored to meet you, man. Like, I'm so proud of you, bro. I'm genuinely like, literally, you, mate. You, man. Oh, and I'm sorry to hear about what happened to your partner as well, man. Like,
well, listen, thanks very much. That's
tragic, bro. Tragic. But like,
I'm just after hearing what you've said about your child as well. I really, my heart goes out to you with that, and I don't know really what to say about that, but I can completely understand when you're going through such a hard trauma and you can see the badness that's in the system and you're trying your best. So hats off to you for that, man.
Bro, you know something, yeah? I'm gonna literally just give you a little moment, yeah? Do you understand, yeah, that people like you are the people that keep people like me going? You know that, right? You may think you've done a small thing, bro. Watching you gives me the strength, bro, to keep going. Knowing that someone can have the level of integrity that you've had to whistleblow. You know what you did for that family by doing that? I guarantee, bro, they will always have your back for the rest of their life. Because the trauma, the pain, and knowing that no one speaks up, that's what hurts the most, bro. But you did that for those families and you spoke up, and I'm so proud of you, bro.
Thank you, mate. That's a really kind thing to say.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for other people, and I can understand why people are scared to do it, because it's very daunting when you're facing such a corrupt to the core establishment system. And it's not just the NHS, there's a lot of correlations with the police.
Yeah.
Unions, where I've went everywhere. I've went to the Public Disclosures Ombudsman, I've went to the National Whistleblowing Officer, I've went to the MPs, I've went to the police, and it's the old saying that when the NHS says that something happens, everybody just absolutely takes it for textbook gospel that what they say is truth, when in reality, in much of the cases, it's not. And you just touched on a wee subject there when you said that the staff are actually writing in the notes and it's the staff that are controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, it's not the staff, it's the management and the senior management that are
coercing the staff
the staff to do that, and the staff are scared of their jobs, they're scared of paying for their mortgages, they're scared of paying for their finances, their future, and they're scared of losing their registration as well, because when the NHS and the corrupt management turn against you, as I know firsthand, it's very difficult to speak to the likes of the Northern Midwifery Council and explain that. Well, they've got two options here. This guy's saying that the NHS have poisoned everybody, potentially killed a lot of people, covered up deaths, framed him for a death, or he's lying. Most people are going to assume that I'm lying, and I know firsthand how difficult that is. Yeah. So, in a reflection of what you've said to me, thank you very much for speaking out, and thank you for taking your trauma and using your heart to speak out and show everybody that the system is wrong. It's very wrong. And there needs to be a complete overhaul of the whole lot in order to move forward for this, because the NHS is broken system-wide. And it's not just the NHS, it's the correlation and the relationship that the NHS has with the police and all the other different public services.
Do you know what I think it is? And you've probably done some digging on this too, and I have as well. I think it's the ICBs. So like the Integrated Care Board, they basically run the area because it's the local authority, the heads in the hospital trust, and then you've got the police can also have meetings and they have local government
you've done your research
boards and organisations. These people. So the thing is, when people look at the issues that exist in the UK, everyone's like, "Oh, it's the government, it's the government." But the thing is, who really are our representatives in government? MPs. MPs aren't that powerful. They don't have there's not really much an MP can do without the backing of their political party. So the political engine is powerful, but the MPs aren't that powerful. But the Integrated Care Boards, they actually have tangible power, as in they can get you sectioned, they can have your kids taken away from you, they can get you fired. They have palpable power to actually exert their will in society. In other words, they run your area. It's like a gang of people that run your area. But because they've got the suits on, that's why people don't think that they're a gang.
When I've previously looked into it, and here it's called the Integrated Joint Board, so it may be different in Scotland or England, but it's the same scenario and it's the same monopolised nonsense. When I've kind of scratched the surface and found where everything leads to, it's kind of led back to that Integrated Joint Board. And when I've went to places and authorities and umbrella kind of organisations say, right, how do we go about getting this Integrated Board investigated? There is no governing body that they're responsible to.
Exactly.
Because it's multiple people from different organisations, and that is a big problem. And you usually find that, and there's a lot of kind of things that I could say about this, could maybe seem like a conspiracy theory, but a lot of people that are on these boards have been very carefully selected to be put on these boards because they are not going to go against the grain of what the overlying kind of plan is for the area.
Exactly. And it's really interesting because we always talk about, democracy and all of that stuff in our society. And the NHS receives 100% public funding. So, guys in the chat, when was the last time you voted for who was your representative in the NHS?
Yep.
Oh! So they get our money, but we don't vote for them. That's strange, isn't it?
I'm basically fighting them at the moment. And I've, and to kind of give you a scale of the corruption, I've been a member of 3 separate unions. Every single one of those unions have pulled away from me because of the scale of what I've been whistleblowing on.
Yeah.
And hats off to the last guy, because he actually says to my face, look, Stephen, we are not going to risk the money that we make off the partnership agreement for your one solitary case.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're never going to get anywhere with us. Now, this is a union that's supposed to be independent, impartial, an advocate of the people.
Yeah.
And he's openly admitting that there is an underlying agreement between the government, the NHS and the unions that they are in partnership to a degree that it's okay. If I was to go and complain at a nurse, somebody up in the corridor, or if a patient was maybe potentially being abused by a singular nurse, but see if you're actually going to go against the actual board, the union will not support you because of this partnership agreement, because the governments have made this deal with them. It's in Scotland, I don't know if it's in England, that when it gets to a certain level, they've got to agree before they make any major moves. And I don't know what kind of financial kind of incentive there is for that, but I've been told there is a financial incentive. Therefore, the unions will only take you so far. So I've not got a union representative anymore. And I had to go to the extremities of video recording the meetings to expose the corruption of the union representative.
Hold on, mate. What's your name? Is it Stephen or something?
Yes, it is.
Stephen. I just want to cut you off quickly because this is going on YouTube. So I just want to give some context to anyone that doesn't know who you are. So would you be able to just give a brief background of who you are and why I know you off the video that you posted on YouTube? But yeah, could you just tell a bit of your story just in a brief way?
So I've been a qualified nurse for many years, and I was framed for the responsibility of killing a patient because of my risk of uncovering the risk of contaminated water supplies in a hospital that's potentially harmed or killed a lot of people. It sounds like, I totally appreciate it, it sounds like the narrative of some sort of Hollywood movie or a Netflix series, but it is indeed actually the truth.
Yeah.
I've been shouting about this for a long, long time, and it has since I've been shouting about it, the same health board has been caught for covering up contaminated water and framing people. Not been caught for it yet, but there's a public inquiry into these claims.
Good.
But there's criminal charges into them, have been made for the exact same behaviour in another hospital.
Yeah.
I'm currently taking them to court for they basically sacked me, they tried to get my registration off me, they framed me for the guy's death, and they've tried to cover up all the stuff about the contaminated water issues. It's basically a national disgrace. But I've been in a few papers and I've been in a few different areas to try and expose it, but due to there's multiple. Lucy Letby, her story is, she get framed for trying to, well, I haven't seen she get framed, maybe she didn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
The boat's still out in that, but there's certainly question marks, that's for sure.
Definitely.
It's all about her, killing patients. However, my story is that they try to frame me for killing a patient because of contaminated water that's potentially harmed and killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
There's multiple layers to my story, which makes it a lot more complicated.
Yeah, same here. I mean, they tried to... So I was exposing, while my children were on the neonatal ward, I was exposing that the staff were misusing the ventilators. I told them that their oxygen was out of line with the national guidelines and that they weren't following the proper ventilation procedures. And they told social services that I didn't want my kids to have oxygen. Tried to have my twins taken away from me. In the midst of them doing this, they accidentally killed my daughter using a ventilator in the exact way that I said that they would. Then they've covered it up, tried to say it was a COVID death, and then put on my daughter's post-mortem that I tried to harm her.
That's absolutely
and
horrific.
then they've refused us an inquest, still gone ahead and tried to take my son away from us using social services. We beat them in the High Court because I said I was about to release my covert recordings that I'd been making since we first got to the hospital. And now they're trying to put me in prison and saying that I'm a stalker because the things that I've said online have caused alarm and distress to the nurses on the ward.
Listen, what you need to do for this point onwards, you need to look up the Christine Cooper case, because it's almost identical in terms of she had concerns about her daughter getting sepsis on the ward.
Yeah.
She was raising concerns about the sepsis, and unbeknownst to the NHS, she knew somebody that was on the board that was an unpaid representative. She contacted them and she says, look, I've got severe concerns that my daughter keeps getting sepsis. The staff apparently had a conversation with her and says, look, we can't keep treating her for sepsis. You need to start considering the fact that we're going to have to potentially let her go. Now, this woman was distraught with this, contacted this guy, and he says, right, well, what to do is put in a complaint about the hygiene of the ward, and that will launch an investigation and to find out where the sepsis is coming from.
Yeah.
And she did that within a very short space of time. They framed her for trying to harm her own daughter.
Yeah.
And they tried to portray that she tried to kill her own daughter. She got her child taken off her through social services, and she got put in jail for a couple of days.
Wow.
So this is almost an identical set of tactics.
Yeah.
That you're telling me right now.
Yeah, I know other people that have had the same thing. Like I know two other people who tried to whistleblow or raise concerns about their loved ones being killed. I know one guy who's on his called Carbon 2452 or something like that. Same exact thing as me. They collapsed his son's lung using a ventilator, I think. Then he's been charged with stalking. Then there's a guy called Mike Mazzaros who they killed his wife, who was elderly. She suffered a lot of neglect on the ward, and he runs a page called Carers Want Competence, and he has been charged with stalking as well. So when I talk a lot about free speech on my platform and stuff as well, and what it is that the reason why a lot of people in the UK get arrested for speech offences is because it's actually a tactic that they also use to silence people who raise concerns, who are whistleblowers and stuff, and we kind of get lost within the midst of people who are actually saying horrible things, which I don't think they should be arrested, but that's another topic. But people don't understand that this is happening in the UK, and they don't understand that it's being perpetrated by the health system. When you talk about the NHS, people go, our NHS, how dare you? Who do you think you are speaking about our NHS? You know what I mean? They don't understand about the criminal networks that exist in the NHS. And the tactics, like you say, the tactics that they use, we see the same tactics repeated over and over again. The disregard for human life, the deliberate attempts to mentally and psychologically break you so that you stop pursuing your concerns, etc. The
tactics that are used are very actual. I mean, the tactics that you're telling me are very, very similar to the other tactics as Zafi have been used against Kirsten Cooper. But the whole collaboration, to me, the issue is not just the NHS, it's the power that they've got. The police allow them to have the power.
Exactly.
They do not properly investigate them because they just assume that the NHS is telling the truth.
Exactly.
The last guy that you had on a minute ago, I mean, fair play to him, he obviously fought his corner, but he's got that naive attitude that, are you saying that all of these people are making this up? Yes, they are all making it up. I'm sorry to be blunt about that, but they are. Then you've got to ask the question, well, why would all of these people be making that up? Because they're bullied, they're intimidated, there's a collaborative culture of just following what the guy does in front of you because you're scared of losing your job. People need to understand that this is the reality of what's happening. And as soon as you start going against that grain, as I very well know, you will be targeted, you will be framed, they'll try and report you to the NMC for made up claims. They'll do whatever they can. And the power that the NHS has over the police, and you said about the politicians earlier on, the politicians haven't got a clue what's going on. The politicians are only interested in hanging about with you if it's going to get them positive publicity in the newspapers, etc. Half of them haven't got a clue what's going on.
Yeah, I think the NHS
system as a whole, and how the whole connectedness of the police, union, the NHS. As soon as you start going against the grains,
the whole thing comes crashing down. Exactly. All of a sudden, you start getting arrested. Then your social services there, as if it's all happening independently of one another, and it has nothing to do with the fact that you raised the concern that your kids are getting taken. It's all bizarre. And
100%.
The NHS, I actually believe. I don't know what you think about this. I think that the NHS is the most powerful conglomerate in the country. I don't think that there's anything more powerful than them in our country, because realistically, they have the power to do the things that affect us the most, let's say.
Correct. People don't understand that. They think it's not really the NHS, it's the seniority of the NHS. Is the people, your average bog standard nurses, most of them are all generally good people.
Exactly.
And they're scared of losing their jobs and they're in there working. I don't know if you've looked at the case recently as well about Colin Norris. Do you know him?
No, I'm saving all these people that you tell me about though.
Colin Norris, look him up. He's currently his case is currently getting heard. They call him the Angel of Death. They accused him of killing multiple people, and he's currently getting looked at, and it's potentially transpiring that he's maybe been set up for that as well.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder how many people they framed, because I spoke about. Have you heard of the Alfie Lamb case?
No. Okay,
that's another parent, I think, that nobody really has brought that one up, but I think that's another parent that's been framed. So there's a lot of us. There's a woman called God, what's her name? I'll get her name for everyone later. Sorry, I've forgotten her name, but she's basically an expert on something called fabricated induced illness syndrome, where parents are getting accused of basically making up the conditions that their children have. And the guy that came up with this diagnosis is actually a charlatan. I think he was struck off from the medical register. But that is a tactic that is used to take people's kids away. And I don't know if you've seen, or if anyone's seen the documentary Take Care of Maya, but that's what happened in the Take Care of Maya documentary. They say, so what happens is a parent will raise a concern, oh, this has happened to my child is unwell, my child has been harmed. And then they will say, no, the parent has a diagnosis of fabricated induced illness syndrome. So yeah, I know this expert, and she knows a lot about this, and she's gone to court against the NHS a lot of different times. But there's a whole heap of us, mate, Stephen, and what I'm trying to do is get interviews with all the people that I think know what they're on about, know what's going on, and I would love to have a proper conversation with you on camera if you'd be interested in doing that, because I think it's really important that the people that those of us that know, that really know, not people that are just talking. We know, we've been through it. I think we have a duty to the public, a duty to this nation even, to make the public realise that we are actually telling the truth.
What I've found so far is that when I've went to the press and journalists, that they're only willing to print so much, because as you know yourself, when you're saying your story, or the NHS are framing, there's a collaborative kind of a campaign against me by social services and the NHS, that generally sounds to a bog standard Joe Blogs, that obviously has to be made up. That can't be true. Now, I know that there is a reality of that through my own experience. You know that.
Yeah.
And I think that the way through social media, as I've found, is that since I've started, I never even expected to get anywhere with TikTok, but since I started speaking on TikTok, nobody can filter what I'm saying, and I can get to say what I want to say, and I know that everything that I say can be backed up by evidence. Therefore, they tried to get my videos down a couple of times, and then I've contested it by TikTok, and TikTok have put it back up again.
Yeah.
So they've gave up with me in terms of trying to get them off, but the social media outlet needs to be maximised in terms of people like yourself and other people that are victims to this. It's like some sort of, I don't even know how to describe it other than some sort of mafia type.
Yeah, it's a mafia.
By these collaborative, corrupt institutions that are all working together to cover up corruption in public organisations. As I said, in Scotland, there's this thing called the Partnership Agreement where even the unions are in amongst it. The unions can only take things so far and then they'll stop. So where do the workers go? Where do the people go now? I've not had it as bad as you because you get your kids took. Your kid, obviously, they're trying to get your kid off you. And I'm really sorry. I can't really apologise enough and give you my heartfelt sympathy for what's happened to you because you've been through a lot worse than me.
I appreciate that.
The power that they have to do these things and get away with it needs to be called out.
Yeah.
Because nobody will believe that this is true unless they see it with their own eyes.
Yeah.
I've been going for 7 years. I've been recording these people, video recording them all, recording all their phone calls, recording all that. Because I knew in my heart, nobody's going to believe what I'm saying here.
Yeah, me too. And that's the crazy thing is, like, I've got it all recorded, and I've said to the police probably over 50 times, guys, just sit down with me, take a statement. I'll give you, listen to the recording. You tell me that is not evidence of what I'm saying, and they don't want to sit down with me, and that tells me that they've got in fact, once I called the police, I spoke to a constable that I've never met in my life. I was telling him about my story. He says to me on the phone, and I told him my story fresh. He says, and I never told him that I was recording. He says, you shouldn't have been recording the nurses on the ward, should you have? And I was like,
right before and after.
And I was like thinking to myself, and I was so shocked because I was like, is this a threat? Like, how does he know who I am? Like, why would he say that? Like, he knows I've lost my child, so he's saying I shouldn't have been recording that. Like, it's just bizarre, mate. Like,
I'm going to give you a wee kind of the example of that. So I've been warned of this, I don't know how many times about recording these meetings. Now, I was sat in multiple meetings, and one of the union reps falsified a full-blown government investigation into my case, and he had told me and my ex-union rep, she was actually one of the good people. She got a car set on fire. She got targeted because she kept speaking up. So it ended up she moved away and she had to give it to the full-time officer. He lied to her and told her that there was a full Scottish government investigation into my case. He told me that. And this went on for 7 months. And I sat back, and then eventually I started to get a wee bit suspicious about this guy. And I says, look, and I phoned him and I recorded the phone call. I says, I want to know the people that you've been talking to in the Scottish government that are doing this so-called investigation. And he says, I don't need to tell you who that is. And I says, I think you'll actually find you do through protection, etc. This is my case. You're speaking to somebody about my confidential information. You need to tell me who the agents that you're speaking to. And he says to me, well, in that case, there's no government investigation. Now, bearing in mind, my case is about the cover-up of responsibility for death, the cover-up of it contaminated water which potentially harmed and killed thousands of people, and framing me for the responsibility of trying to kill a patient. And he's just admitted on a phone call that he has falsified a government investigation in order to pacify me and kick the can down the road. Now, I then complained about this guy to the union and says, right, I've recorded this phone call, here you go, hand them the phone call, and they says to me, you shouldn't have been recording your representative. And I'm like, are you joking me? Your priority in the fact that you've just uncovered that your full-time officer has admitted falsifying a government investigation,
which is misconduct in public office, which is a serious criminal offence.
Absolutely. And your priority is that I've recorded one of your representatives.
Yeah.
And he says, well, we're giving you an official warning. We're not going to warn you again. If it happens again, we're going to withdraw. We'll get you another union rep. And I'm like, are you joking me?
Mate,
the police, everybody's warned against me through recording everybody's meetings. The NHS have sent me that. But I'll tell you right now, it's the best thing I've ever done because that is the one thing they're scared of.
Yeah.
I've now got multiple copies. I've got about 50 hours of all these meetings.
Yeah.
With all these people's and all these phone calls, and they pretty much admit what they've done. on all these, and I've been to the police multiple times. I've sat down with the police. They've looked at the evidence and they referred me back to the NHS and said this is a corporate,
exactly.
It's a corporate issue. You need to refer it back to your employer. Give them this breakdown of the fake statements, and then they will be professionally obligated to contact us, and then we'll launch the investigation. So I then had to go back to the organisation that's falsified all these investigations, covered up the responsibility of death, framed me for a fucking death, and says, right, you need to phone the police.
On yourself.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Makes no
Absolutely
sense.
ridiculous. Of course they're going to say no. 20 odd times or something they refuse to phone the police. And I'm like, so where do I go? I'm running about chasing my tail. They know I'm chasing my tail, so they're all just assuming this guy's going to give up.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is how they set it up on, and it's like you only realize how they've set it up when you get to that kind of, I don't know, when something really bad happens and you kind of go up the ladder of who's responsible and you do your little research and you find everything, and as soon as you get to the person responsible, they just throw you back down to the start. It's like, start again, like go back to that guy, and then you're like, so it's just you're just lost in this, like.
Honestly, mate, I'll tell you what they're scared of though. All of them. TikTok, they are absolutely terrified of TikTok because TikTok doesn't take it down. TikTok, I've tried to take mine down. They've tried to get my videos down, and TikTok have put them back. I don't know if it's because TikTok's with China or whatever. I'm not interested. But everything that I've said has stayed up on TikTok, and they are terrified of it because they don't know. I'm sitting with the evidence that I've got. I'm going to court, and I've kept saying I'm going to put the evidence on TikTok, and people are saying, well, you need to wait till we go to court because that's going to bias your case and all that stuff. But if I go to court and my case ends up if it ends up corrupting the court case, I will release all the evidence on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy with that at that point because I know that I've done everything in my power to make everybody know the level and the scale of the corruption in all these organisations. The NHS are not who you think they are. Coming from a qualified licensed nurse of many years is that 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also have no reason to lie. Like, our case is in the it's in the media a little bit. We were part of a documentary. Like, my daughter is dead. She can't come back. I have no reason to do this. I was working in medical sales before. I could have just pursued my career and had a lovely life. And no one wants to be this guy. I can tell you that right now. Like, so I don't know. People need to just start opening their eyes a bit. But mate, like, it's such a pleasure to actually speak to you because It just tells me, like, first of all, that, I'm doing the right thing because I'm connecting with the right people. And just, that knowing that other people are willing to fight is inspiring. But I really want to be able to speak to you again at some point.
That's fine. Listen, I'll go just now and I'll get somebody else a wee shot anyway. But I just wanted to go on and say that I'm very proud of what you're doing. And well done, mate. And keep going. Keep banging the drum and keep going because you're doing the right thing. And you've got my support anyway. Hats off to you for what you went through.
Yeah, you too, mate.
Cheers, mate. I don't know how to hang this up. You better hang me up. I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Cheers.
Take care. So, I guess for the YouTube viewers, for the TikTok viewers, when people say to me, if this is happening, why wouldn't people be saying something about it? There you go. So we've just now got on YouTube, and I'll probably get that clip and I'll repost it in a short clip for the people that say that, they don't want to watch a 2-hour live. That's an example right there of a whistleblower from the NHS. And we have dozens of whistleblowers that I speak to regularly who work in the NHS. And he's just told you what they do. He's just told you that he has witnessed them covering up deaths on a massive scale. When he tried to whistleblow about it, they targeted him. And I've been following this guy for a while, actually. And I think, actually, he lost his partner. And he said to them, like, can we do this meeting on a different day? And they didn't even let him do the meeting on a different day. The guy's grieving his partner. Like, these people are sick. Like, so I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. I'm starting to just kind of lose my energy today because it's so overwhelming. Some of the things that, like, we have to go through. And I just wanted you guys to know that there are people just like me that are speaking out about this. It's not just me rabbiting on or yapping, as they say in the comments. This stuff's real, man. You don't want to be me. You don't want to be this guy, the black sheep, the people getting targeted. And like he said, I've spoken to people that said that senior management in the NHS is threatened to take their life. I know people that they've taken their kids, people that they've prevented them from getting money from the what's it called, from the DWP, by saying things by misrepresenting how they get their income, or making allegations that they're doing criminal activities. Like, these people are very powerful. And I don't know if it's reasonable to expect the average person to put themselves on the line for this, but at least be aware, at least share the content. Like, tell a friend that this is happening. I saw this guy on TikTok. This kind of sounds real. Let's talk about Letby, and not have a taboo about the idea of the NHS frame people, because they really do frame people. And they don't frame a little bit of people. They frame a lot of people. It is a well-known fact. Everybody who works in the NHS knows it's the unspoken rule. Don't speak up, don't whistleblow, or we're going to target you. Everybody knows. And if they tell you that that's not the case, watch them. Because everybody who has any conscience in the NHS, they know what's going on. And the best ones of them are whistleblowers. If they're trying to tell you this doesn't happen, watch them, because they are not who they seem. They can't be trusted. Let's get Sarah up. Sarah, are you connected? Yep, there we go.
Hey, hold on. Let me just step outside. You chat whilst I get outside, away from ears in here. But yeah, Amma, let's do this. Come on. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just, man, I've been going a while now, but I think soon I'll wrap up. But I wanted you to maybe speak to people as well and just say what your understanding of what these people do is, and what a little bit about your research, your background, just to top off the live, because I'm going to post this on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah. No, it's time, isn't it? It's time now for all of us to come forward that have seen it. There's an echo. I don't know why.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it.
The echo.
Yeah, I think I know what it is, but it's kind of hard to solve. It's just how I do the YouTube. I'll try to fix it at some point.
Alright, don't worry. Yeah, I think it's time for us. We've been talking for a while, haven't we, about that, and I've kind of dragged my heels a bit through fear and all of that kind of thing. I've been through sort of similar things as you, although fortunately I didn't lose the baby. Could have done, nearly did. Nearly lost both of them. But yeah, I'm stepping forward now and speaking up, because it's not just, this is just part of a bigger problem. And it's continuing to happen. And I know it is, because I've supported many families who've lost babies.
So you're doing research as well, like, or are you not? Do you not really want to speak about your research right now?
No, I'll talk about it. I won't talk about like specific names, but I wrote an abstract. I've written a couple of abstracts that were accepted, and did some research into the perinatal mortality of twins and multiples. And I had cause to go back and have a look at what I found out. And it really opened my eyes, and I saw things that I didn't first see, or I saw in a different way. So in terms of the Lucy Letby case, there was an audit that took place between 2014 and 2017. And what years are those? Very, very carefully worded. And this audit found that there was the stillbirth rate and the neonatal death rate of twins had gone down by half, but the singletons had gone up. And then, of course, went straight back up afterwards. But because that audit was created in order for those that were participating in it and creating it and leading it would, off the back of it, having done a great job, get lots of funding, lots of grants, giving huge amounts of power to control twin and multiple clinics and centres up and down the country. And only certain trusts were involved in that audit. And there were how many twins? There was 15 twins and multiples. So 12 twins, if you include the co-twins that their sibling died in utero, and then the 3 triplets. So most of them were not booked or due to be born at the Countess of Chester, and they were treated at other tertiary level centre hospitals, which means a specialist hospital, and they were moved just before they were born. And I believe that they knew that they were too well to make it, because the Countess of Chester was not involved in that audit.
So
I know this for a fact.
So you're basically saying, to simplify, that many of the babies that died in the Letby case were essentially sent to the ward with the pre-knowledge that these children were likely to pass away, and the reason that they may have been likely to pass away is because they may have been involved in some kind of study that they were doing.
There was studies as well. There's still ongoing study.
And these are twin studies.
Well, there's twin studies, which is research in using twins into nature versus nurture, etc., etc., etc. And then there's research into things that affect twin pregnancy. And there is ongoing randomized control studies into whether or not to treat certain conditions in utero or to do what's called conservative management, which is watch and wait. Watch and wait in many twin diseases, that affect twin pregnancy, will basically lead to death, as close to death as you can get.
So you're saying basically that they're doing studies with how they treat twins, and that provides a motivation for them to cover up what's going on, and thereby having a scapegoat is convenient so that people don't understand the mechanisms and the workings behind these experiments that they're doing on twins, on neonates, which they probably perceive as they're doing it for the greater science or whatever, but people are dying, it's being covered up, and then they're framing people to stop people understanding the experiments that they're doing behind the scenes.
Potentially, yeah. I'll have to say potentially.
Yeah.
Even though you and I know exactly what I think and what I know.
Yeah.
Because it's not just what I think. It's what I know, it's what I've seen, it's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Like the gentleman before, I've also been collecting evidence for a very long time.
Yeah.
Recording a lot of conversations that I've also had. And I've tried desperately to share it, as I know that you have. I've seen a lot of parents like felt hurt, arrested, the kids, and even being taken advantage of. So half your story is told in a narrative that isn't exactly, to the truth, isn't it? It's really bad. But I think that in terms of the experts, these 14 experts, I was watching a YouTube video today, actually. I know yesterday I sent it to you, I think, and it was about psyops, how to recognize it. And one of them was scapegoating is a way to see it. When people start calling themselves experts, when they push science, when they get a group of experts together to prove something. And if you take, for example, the 14 experts, I've been really going heavily into baby A and B, who were twins, who were incidentally in NICU at the same time as my babies. The mother had this antiphospholipid syndrome. She also had cholestasis, which is very, very risky. She had gestational hypertension, and she was carrying twins. So she had multiple issues, yet for some reason, the experts have gone, it's a consequence of the antiphospholipid syndrome, which is it's a red herring. It's fucking as clear as the nose on your face. She was not due. She was not supposed to be giving birth at that hospital. She was under the care of 2 trusts in London. It's all in the Thirlwell documents. She went, for whatever reason, I believe it would have been the cholestasis. She was admitted 3 days, actually it worked out about 9 days later, she gives birth. But it's an emergency birth because she is put under, I believe, I don't know because I haven't spoken to her, and have to bear that in mind, but she was given a general anaesthetic. She didn't see her babies. She talks about how chaotic and how bad the communication was, and that she's given a phone call. I think the only time that she was ever given a room to sit down in and discuss her babies privately was when they apologised for calling her about another baby. It was absolutely shambolic.
Yeah, I've been through it. I actually think that a lot of hospitals need to be shut down. Like some of these nurses, they're basically like kids. Like, you would get better care from like teenagers. Genuinely, like they gossip, they're immature, they're silly, they're incompetent, they can't document things properly, they blame others for their shortcomings, they don't take accountability. They're absolutely terrible. Before my daughter died, I have a recording where I sat down and I was speaking to the staff members and I said, this has been the worst experience of my entire life. And then they killed my daughter. So, but I've been live now for almost 3 hours straight. I don't want the live to be too long. There's meant to be an hour and a half, but thanks for joining, Sarah. I will speak to you soon. It's just been a busy week, but to everyone watching, thank you so much. We've got 20, I think we've got quite a few people starting to kind of chime in on the YouTube. So thank you to everyone that's tuning in on YouTube. Please do subscribe at State of Deception on YouTube. Sorry to anyone requesting that wasn't able to speak today, but I will be live again probably tomorrow, so there's that too. But so I'm gonna end the live for TikTok. Sarah, did you want to say something just quickly?
I just wanted to say that we have got to stand together. We have got to back each other up. We've got to step forward from out of the shadows. I know that as well. I've heard you, firmly when you say, it's a responsibility that we have. I do believe it's correct. And I think, people need to follow anybody that they've heard on here. I just follow Craig that went up before. Follow me, because I'm going to start sharing some about this. Go through each of the things. Hopefully Emma's going to chat with me and help us through that as well. Yeah, we're definitely obviously going to speak, and we always speak anyway. So, all right, Sarah, I'm just going to drop you down because I'm just going to do an outro for the live. So, again, thank you, everyone. That was quite a long live. Again, I am trying to make the live shorter. Follow us on YouTube at State of Deception. You can also literally send me messages on Facebook. My Facebook is Ama Maduako. First name Ama, A-M-A. Last name Maduako, M-A-D-U-A-K-O. Obviously, if you search my name, you'll also see details about my daughter's case. Our TikTok is Adora Story, ADAORAS _story. Again, YouTube is at State of Deception. So just follow us on all platforms. In my TikTok bio, you can also see all of the press stories about our case. You can see the documentary we were in that was nominated for a BAFTA, Maternity Broken Trust. Send me a message if you, or use the form on the link in my bio as well. If you want to whistleblow and you have a story similar, or if you want to join up with what we're doing. Thank you, Wesley, for supporting on YouTube. We really want to build up the YouTube support. So we've got 100 views on this live, so that's really good. The whole live will be available on YouTube for anyone that wants to watch back or they want to hear what someone said. I will try and clip this particular live up and make the clips available, but it might not be immediate. So follow the journey. Right. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. I'm going to lock off now. It's been a busy day. I'm absolutely exhausted. Do take care. Bye-bye. So thank you. We just ended the live for TikTok. And, of course, YouTube. You guys get the last little rumblings of every live. Thank you, everyone. Please subscribe if you're watching, to the viewers. Peace. Let's actually end the stream now.